The Grand Army of the Wu Kingdom, under the command of Wu Mu, launched a massive assault on Raging Wave City. However, upon their arrival, they discovered that Jin Zhuo was not dead. This shocked Wu Mu to the point of nearly fainting. To make matters worse, the Jin family's army then threw the heads of Wu Kingdom soldiers down from the city walls. Jin Zhuo stepped forward and proposed in negotiation the lives of 7,000 prisoners of war in exchange for one person, the dog's life of Chou Hao. Upon hearing this, Chou Hao immediately ordered a retreat. Wu Mu tried his best to explain and persuade him to stay, but the Jin family's taunts only intensified. In the end, Chou Hao abandoned the Wu Kingdom's army, leaving them surrounded. The shock of this betrayal was too much for Wu Mu, and he fainted. When he awoke, he found his officers kneeling before him, their faces filled with terror. He roared, "What is it now?" A subordinate, his face pale, clasped his hands and reported, "The Jin family has released all 7,000 of our prisoners." Wu Mu exclaimed, "Isn't releasing the prisoners a good thing?" But he then fell silent, wondering why his men looked so grim. The subordinate replied, "These 7,000 men, each of them is severely burned and suffering from a high fever. They need immediate medical treatment or they will all die." Wu Mu roared in fury, "So that's it! These prisoners are a burden the Jin family has sent back to weaken our army." The subordinate clasped his hands again. "Our grain supplies have also been burned. At least 70% is gone." Wu Mu trembled with shock. What our grain was heavily guarded, surrounded by barrels of water to extinguish any fire at a moment's notice. How could it have been burned? The subordinate answered, "The Jin family used some unknown weapon. When it touched our grain, a bizarre green fire erupted. Water couldn't extinguish it. It even burned on the water's surface." Hearing this, Wu Mu was completely stunned, muttering, "How is this possible? How?" A moment later, he slumped onto his seat and said, "We're withdrawing." "Withdrawing, my lord, to where?" an officer asked. Wu Mu sighed deeply. "Back to the Wu Kingdom. Aren't we returning to Heavenly Wind City? We could still destroy Chou Hao and seize Heavenly Wind Island," the officer pressed. Wu Mu said listlessly, "If we can't capture Raging Wave City, what's the point of taking Heavenly Wind Island? It's more useful in the hands of that scoundrel Chou Hao than in ours. Relay my orders. We are withdrawing." And so, with tears falling, the game was over. A few hours later, Wu Mu's 12,000-strong army retreated north on dozens of warships. Aboard his ship, Wu Mu gazed back at Raging Wave City with deep regret. "The Jin family didn't attack us during our retreat," he thought. "Perhaps Marquis Jin Zhuo spared us because of our 7,000 wounded prisoners. Without them, he surely would have attacked. Just over half a month ago, I led 30,000 elite troops south full of vigor, believing that an immortal achievement was within my grasp. Now I am fleeing like a stray dog. I have learned so much in this battle, but will I ever have a chance to correct my mistakes?" At this thought, Wu Mu collapsed to his knees on the deck. He slammed his head on the floor and cried out, "Your Majesty, your servant has lost the battle. I have failed your trust. I deserve to die 10,000 times. How will the conservative old ministers in the court use this against you? How much damage will this do to your Majesty's prestige? Your Majesty, your servant deserves to die 10,000 times." The intense emotion combined with days of exhaustion caused Wu Mu to violently cough up blood. As he collapsed unconscious, Wu Yu rushed to his side shouting, "Older brother, older brother. Someone call the royal physician." Meanwhile, in the territory of the Chang Kingdom on the 8th day of the Su family's escape, Sunan's group was now 2,000 miles from the mansion of the Marquis of Zhenyuan and less than 300 miles from the western regions. To ensure their safety, Sunan had sent out numerous scouts to survey the area within a 100-mile radius. "My lord, there are no enemies ahead," one scout reported. "My lord, there are no enemies within 100 miles behind us either," said another. Sunan finally breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, "The entire Su family is safe. Neither Zheng Tuo nor Shen Lang can catch us now. Thankfully, I was decisive and fled after only one night's delay. Otherwise, the Su family would now be surrounded by tens of thousands of enemy soldiers facing annihilation." Su Yong clasped his hands and spoke, "My lord, the army's morale is very low. Many soldiers have guessed that we are fleeing. The warriors do not want to leave their homeland and are complaining in secret." Sunan replied,
Don't worry. Once we reach the western regions, they will have no other choice but to rally around me. They will become even more loyal. Su Jian spoke up. My lord, rewarding them with some gold could boost their morale. Su Yong looked distressed. But we don't have much gold left. Only a little over 400,000 taels. Su Nan was shocked. Is that all? He had spent a fortune on this war, hiring monks from the Great Calamity Temple, employing mercenaries from the western regions, and bribing the Qiang king? The assault on White Knight City alone consumed a colossal amount of gold daily. Furthermore, he had already converted a large portion of his gold into grain, which was stored back at the Marquis of Genuin's mansion. I only have 5,000 men, Su Nan mused. After arriving in the western regions, I can't force my way through with might. I must pave the way with gold. The people of the western regions are even greedier than those in the east. 400,000 taels is far too little. I have a marriage alliance with the Chu kingdom. With enough gold, I could quickly establish myself in the western regions and secure a piece of land. Suddenly, Su Yong said, My lord, the Chang king's palace has gold Alu Gang plundered for decades, and all the gold was forged into his palace. Its roof is gold. Its floors are gold. It would convert to at least 2 million gold coins. Su Nan's heart pounded. I know the Chang king's palace has gold, but I deliberately avoided thinking about it. My greatest weakness is my greed. Once it takes hold, I can't control it. I cannot go to the Chang king's palace. I cannot be greedy. Weren't the previous lessons cruel enough? But with the gold from the Chang king's palace, my struggle in the western regions could be shortened by at least 2 or 3 years. How precious are 2 or 3 years? I, Su Nan, am already 60 years old. How many 2 or 3 years do I have left? Su Jianting might already be dead. Su Jianchong is only 18 this year. I still need several years to train him. My time is truly running out. I desperately need this money. This is a fortune greater than the entire annual tax revenue of the Yue Kingdom. Am I just going to let it slip away? Su Jian said loudly. Big brother, let's go and take it. With that gold, the men will stop complaining and won't cause trouble, Su Yong added. My lord, with this gold, we can thrive in the western regions. With enough gold, the king of Chu could directly appoint you as a provincial governor. Su Nan stood up abruptly. No, we are not going to the Chang king's palace. We cannot waste time. The urgent matter is to get to the western regions immediately. The rest is over. We continue west-west. His subordinates wanted to persuade him further, but seeing his fierce determination, they dared not speak and could only obey. However, the Su family's army refused to move. They would not continue west. Su Nan roared in anger. What is this? Are they defying my orders? The soldiers knelt in unison. My lord, there are no pursuing forces for hundreds of miles. The Chang king's palace is less than 200 miles away. My lord, we know we must move to the western regions, but the brothers have nothing to their names, and our hearts are uneasy. With gold, the brothers will have something to live on in the western regions. My lord, the Chang king's palace is only 200 miles away. Millions in gold are right before our eyes. Are we not to take it? My lord, after we get the gold, the brothers only need a small portion. The rest will be given to you, my lord, to develop your great enterprise. Hearing their words, Su Nan was furious enough to spit blood. You dare, he seethed. But then he calmed himself and thought for a long time. Finally, with a resolute expression, Su Nan declared, The entire army will head south. We will quickly seize the gold from the Chang king's palace and then immediately proceed west. The soldiers erupted in cheers. Long live our lord! Long live our lord! Unbeknownst to them, Shen Lang had already dispatched his experts to the Chang king's palace 2 or 3 days ahead of Su Nan. These experts, under the pretext that the new queen wished to return to a clean palace, began to clean the entire complex from top to bottom. Be careful, Wu Li shouted to his men. Do not let this water touch your skin directly. The water they were using had been laced with a potent poison concocted by Shen Lang. Soon the entire palace gleamed dazzlingly, ready to welcome its new occupants. Meanwhile, Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian had expected to face a bloody battle at the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan. Instead, they found the fortress completely undefended. Zheng Tuo was stunned. How is this possible? A suicide squad of only 100 men captured this place. I only sent them on a reconnaissance mission. Liang Yongnian immediately said, This must be one of Su Nan's schemes. Su Nan is a cunning schemer. We must not let our guard down.
Earl Zheng Tuo, I will go and set up our defenses first." While Zheng Tuo did not flee, Liang Yongnian genuinely retreated several miles. Only after the suicide squad confirmed with Earl Zheng Tuo that Su Nan had taken all his elite forces and fled did Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian feel at ease. A short while later, inside the castle of the Marquis of Genuan, Zheng Tuo mused. To abandon such a great fortress just like that. Anyone else would have been unable to bear it. Su Nan is truly decisive. Liang Yongnian added, "I initially thought we would have to pay a heavy price to capture this castle. I never expected it to be this easy." Zheng Tuo draped an arm over his shoulder and laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha! Heaven is truly helping us, granting us such an unprecedented achievement. Shen Lang and Zhang Chong only managed to hold White Knight City while we destroyed Su Nan's main force and captured the mansion of the Marquis of Genuan. Compared to our merits, what is Shen Lang's achievement worth? That fool Shen Lang wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, hoping we and Su Nan would destroy each other so he could reap the benefits. What a daydream. Remember what he said before, that Su Nan had a brilliant plan to pacify the world. Now the phrase, losing both his wife and his army, is perfectly suited for him. The Wu Kingdom's army is attacking Raging Wave City. The Jin family's destruction is certain. Jin Mulan will have her martial arts crippled and be sent to the Crown Prince's bed. The great merit of destroying the Su clan now belongs to us. Shen Lang is the one who has lost both his wife and his army. He calls himself intelligent, but he's turned out to be nothing but a clown. If he's so capable, let him go and kill Su Nan. Let him bring back Su Nan's head, then the merit for destroying the Su family would be his. But Su Nan is long gone. By now he has probably already escaped to the western regions." When his subordinates informed Wu Mu that Jin Zhuo had released the 7,000 prisoners, he initially thought it was good news. However, upon learning they were all severely burned and required immediate medical care, Wu Mu realized they were a burden the Jin family had intentionally saddled him with. Weeping, he gave the order to retreat to the Wu Kingdom. Meanwhile, after days of fleeing like a dog, Su Nan finally breathed a sigh of relief, believing Shen Lang was no longer a threat. However, his subordinates urged him to raid the Chang King's palace for its gold. Though he knew it was dangerous, spurred on by pressure from his army and his own resurfacing greed, Su Nan decided to plunder the palace, a place Shen Lang had already sent men to clean and prepare with a few nasty surprises. Across the land, Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian were celebrating their great victory, believing Shen Lang and the Jin family were facing utter ruin. Transition to the Qiang Kingdom's border. Su Nan led his 5,000 troops who had been marching west on a sharp turn south, charging straight for the Qiang King's palace. When he arrived, all the eunuchs and guards had already fled. Su Nan's 5,000-man army easily occupied the entire complex. Su Nan immediately issued orders. "Deploy 100 scouts to patrol in all directions. I want to know of any movement within 100 miles. Half the army will cut the gold work fast. No one is to hide any for themselves. All gold will be collected and then divided equally. The other half of the army will set up defensive positions ready for battle at any moment." Enthusiastically, the Su family's soldiers rushed to claim the gold. However, the gold, though soft, was mixed with stone, making it difficult to cut. Under the hot summer sun, the soldiers assigned to the task were drenched in sweat. The next morning, Su Nan rotated the troops. The defenders went to cut gold, and the gold cutters took over guard duty. As night fell again, Su Nan grew increasingly tense, keeping a close watch on his surroundings. He observed everything from a high vantage point, thinking, "No enemies. We are safe for now." He then leaped down and walked among his soldiers who were toiling day and night to separate the gold from the stone. He proceeded to the smelting workshop where everyone was working feverishly. Gleaming gold ingots were piled high on the ground. Su Nan picked up a large ingot, examining it for a long time before a faint smile crossed his lips. Thank heavens for this gold from the Qiang King, he thought. Su Yong approached his face, beaming with joy. "My lord, the amount of gold is even greater than we imagined. It will surely convert to more than 2 million gold coins. With this fortune, you will quickly establish a foothold in the western regions and secure the position of provincial governor. It won't be long before our Su family rises again. Then we can return to the Yue Kingdom, annihilate the Jin family, and kill Shen Lang." Hearing this, the soldiers cheered in unison. "Long live our lord! Long live the Su family!" Su Nan's expression brightened, and he thought with a triumphant smile, gold truly is omnipotent. We haven't even reached the western regions yet. The sight of so much gold has already sent morale soaring. As the soldiers finished cutting the gold, their first reaction was to bite it. Gold is softer than other similarly colored metals, so a single bite could confirm its authenticity. "Wow, it's real gold," they chattered amongst themselves. "The Chang King was so rich, ha ha ha, but in the end it all fell into our hands, didn't it?" Suddenly a man from below struck a gong and shouted, "All right, time to eat. Come and get your bread." Many soldiers, after handling the gold, would immediately grab bread to eat, transferring whatever was on the gold directly into their mouths. Anyone who came into contact with the gold inevitably ingested the substance. The task of cutting the gold was immense, and after several days, Sunan's army still wasn't finished. Gradually, some soldiers began to suffer from diarrhea. At first, no one paid it much mind, but the number of sick soldiers grew daily. Despite the summer heat, they shivered with chills. They suffered from vomiting diarrhea, and even passed blood. A panicked Su Yong reported, "My lord, nearly all the soldiers have diarrhea. Only the few who didn't participate in cutting the gold are unaffected." Horrified, Sunan rushed outside to assess the situation. The moment he stepped out, he saw his soldiers lying all over the ground, clutching their stomachs in agony. His eyes widened in shock. "This is bad," he thought. "This gold isn't clean. Its surface must have been coated with something. Damn that dog Shenlang! It must be him. If Shenlang tampered with the gold in the Chang King's palace, it means he anticipated we would come here. The Chang Kingdom's army can't be far. Alu Nana is the new Chang King. He's probably leading over 20,000 cavalrymen right now. Meanwhile, my men are completely drained from diarrhea. How can we possibly fight? We'll be wiped out before we can even charge. Greed has blinded me. Greed has blinded me. I knew I should have gone straight west yet. I still gave in to temptation. Shenlang is so vicious, so ruthless. I knew he was a meticulous schemer, so how could I still make this mistake?" Su Quan spoke up. "My lord, even if Shenlang's army is in pursuit, they can't be moving that fast. Our scouts are spread far and wide. It will take Shenlang several days to catch up. We still have time to finish cutting the gold and then leave." "No," Sunan said firmly. "Stop cutting the gold immediately. Everyone to your horses. We are fleeing now." Although Su Quan looked reluctant to leave the fortune behind, he had no choice but to obey. 2 days after Sunan's army fled the Chiang King's palace, the number of sick soldiers had swelled to over half the army. Despite being on flat grasslands, they barely covered 200 miles in 2 days because the army was so ill. Suddenly, a scout galloped back in a panic. "Urgent report! Urgent report! The Chang Kingdom's cavalry is approaching from the south." Sunan was terrified. So it's true. Shenlang really did circle south to hunt us down. My army is completely incapacitated. What's the point of fighting now? Sujan rushed forward, slapped himself hard across the face, and cried out, "My lord, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have been so greedy. If I hadn't mentioned the gold, this disaster would never have happened." Su Quan also ran over, knelt, and said through tears, "It is we who have brought ruin upon you, my lord." Sunan was in a state of complete shock. Once again, the Su family faces a great catastrophe. What do I do if I can't overcome this? The Su family will be annihilated. Greed has destroyed me. My judgment was clouded by profit. What can I do? The Su family cannot be destroyed like this. There must be a way. There must be a way, Sujan said. "Big brother, take a few hundred men and flee to the western regions as fast as you can. I will stay behind to cover the rear. I caused this disaster. I will atone for it with my death." Su Quan added, "My lord, I will also stay behind. You must take the young master and go quickly." Sunan clutched his head and sighed. No. Shenlang surely has an ambush waiting in the west. He predicted I would go to the western regions. We wasted several days at the Chang King's palace. He has certainly sent elite cavalry ahead to wait for us to walk into his trap. He turned to Su Yong. "Su Yong, are you willing to die for me?" "This old servant is willing. This old servant is willing," Su Yong replied without hesitation. "Good," Sunan declared. "You will wear my cloak, carry my banner, and continue west. You will lead the main force to draw Shenlang's army. The only way from the Chiang Kingdom to the western regions is through the Great Canyon. Shenlang will surely set an ambush there. You will be the bait.
I will lead a few hundred men and quietly circle north, taking the long road to the western regions." Su Yong kowtowed. "Yes, yes, my lord." "Su Yong," Sunan said, "I am asking much of you." With a resolute expression, Su Yong replied, "To die for my lord is this old servant's great fortune." And so Su Yong, disguised as Sunan, led the several thousand remaining troops of the Su family westward, with the Chiang cavalry in hot pursuit. Meanwhile, Sunan, disguised as an ordinary warrior, took several hundred of his most trusted men and a portion of the gold, using the cover of darkness to flee north. Half a day later, as he fled for his life, Sunan thought Su Yong is leading several thousand men west. "It looks like the main force, so it should be enough to fool Shenlang. Even though I've lost thousands of men with a few hundred loyalists and a large amount of gold, my Su family can still rise again. Shenlang, you want to kill me? Absolutely impossible. One day, I will return to the Yue kingdom and establish a Su dynasty. One day I will exterminate the Jin family and grind your bones to dust, Shenlang." But alas, life is not a dream. A large army blocked their path ahead. And with them, Shenlang's voice called out, "Uncle Sunan, why are you in such a hurry? Are you planning to go north to the Chu kingdom and then loop back into the western regions?" Sunan was utterly stunned. It's Shenlang." Shenlang continued to advance. "Uncle Sunan, I have been waiting here for you for a long time. You are surrounded. I anticipated you would use the golden cicada sheds its shell trick. You would surely have someone impersonate you to lead the main Sioux army west while you quietly took a small group north. You truly are cunning." From the side, Shenlang thought to himself, Sunan's most trusted followers must all be here. It seems he has reached a dead end, facing his doom. Sunan was not panicked. He removed his hood. When Li Tianqiu saw Sunan's face, his jaw dropped in astonishment. He thought, "I've only been gone for a month or two, so how has Sunan aged so much?" Sunan led the remnants of his army toward the Chang King's palace, capturing it in an instant. He immediately ordered half his men to stand guard while the other half pried gold from the palace walls. Soon the Su family had amassed a great fortune. Just as Sunan was basking in the dream of his family's revival, his army was struck down by a plague of diarrhea. It was not hard to guess this was the handiwork of Shenlang. Realizing he had walked into a trap, Sunan ordered a full retreat. But with his army incapacitated, they couldn't get far. Desperate Sunan switched identities with Su Quan, but in the end, Shenlang still cornered him. This Sunan, however, seemed to be a fake. Shenlang waved his hand forward and shouted, "Uncle Sunan, the Su clan will be completely wiped out today. Brothers, charge!" At his command, archers took aim and unleashed a torrential rain of arrows toward Sunan's men. Caught off guard, many soldiers were struck and fell to the ground, crying out in agony. Yet Sunan himself remained surprisingly calm. He sat on his horse, his face an unreadable mask, seemingly plotting his next move amidst the chaos. Beside him, Su Zhan and the other bodyguards desperately swung their swords, deflecting the incoming arrows. "My lord, we will escort you out of here," one bodyguard shouted. Su Zhan urgently added, "That's right, big brother. We will escort you and the young master out. We can still fight." He then turned toward Shenlang's forces, waved his hand, and roared, "Everyone draw your swords and break through the encirclement. Sacrifice yourselves for our lord and the Su clan charge." Just as a bloody battle seemed imminent, Sunan unexpectedly shouted, "Stop! On the other side!" Shenlang signaled for his army to halt, though they remained on high alert, their eyes fixed on the enemy. If anyone dared to make a move, they would strike without hesitation. Sunan slowly rode forward to face Shenlang. He sighed. "I never thought I would fall into your hands in the end. A single character flaw is truly enough to ruin a person's entire life. If not for my greed back then, wanting the gold from the fanatics wanting to kill them, and wanting to legitimize my claim to White Knight City trying to hit 3 targets with 1 arrow, you would never have had the chance to fight me there. This time too, it was greed for the gold in the Chang King's palace that led to the brink of my clan's extinction." As he spoke, tears streamed down his face. Perhaps it was a convincing performance, an attempt to soften Shenlang's heart. Even more surprisingly, his 2 brothers joined in weeping and lamenting. Su Zhan beat his chest, blaming himself. "Big brother, don't say any more. It's all my fault. You clearly didn't want the gold and wanted to go straight to the western regions." "No," Sunan interjected. "Ultimately, it was because I wanted that gold.
I Sunan once considered myself unparalleled in intelligence, second to no hero in the world, only to end up like this. But Shenlang, there is one hero in this world you will never be able to handle. Unsurprised, Shenlang replied calmly, as if curious to see what game Sunan was playing. Tell me more. The Prince of Jing, Sunan said gravely. Just you wait. He will sweep across the south, holding the civilized world in one hand and the power of the barbarian armies in the other. He will become the new hegemon of this generation. Shenlang laughed. Lord Su, since you're assessing the heroes of the world, why not assess me a little? As if on cue, Sunan's face brightened and he began to prophesize. Shenlang, you are exceptionally intelligent, almost demonic in your wisdom. Facing you often drives people to despair. But do you know what your weakness is? It's your arrogance. You are far too arrogant. You don't care about 1,000,000 gold coins, nor do you care for noble titles. You hold no regard for the common people of the world. You kill as you please. It's as if you only see the heavens. Apart from the few people by your side, everyone else in the world is an idiot to you. You are truly too high and mighty. Besides revenge, you have no desires. A person like you is destined for a great calamity. One day you too will die because of that arrogance. Shenlang merely smirked. Perhaps. But Sunan wasn't finished. His expression suddenly turned grim and pale. Finally, I want to ask one question. The secret letter my father Su Jin wrote to the Jin family, did Jin Zhuo really burn it? It was burned to ashes, Shenlang replied casually. But I made many copies, not that they were needed. That letter has little value. Sunan muttered. So it was burned. I should have trusted in Jin Zhuo's integrity. At the time, I received a secret report saying the Jin family hadn't burned the letter. I didn't believe it, but the informant repeated the entire contents of the letter word for word without a single mistake. Then it was either the hidden Yuan faction or the Huan family, Shenlang added. Back then, Earl Jin Yu considered both of them his most trusted allies. Sunan no longer cared. His expression changed again. None of that matters anymore. It's not important. He scanned the crowd, searching for someone. When he found his target, his face lit up with a defiant look. Sword King Li Tianqiu, the last time you tried to assassinate me, you failed, suppressed by my aura. You must feel very unsettled. How about another battle, a fight to the death between us? What do you say? Faced with this sudden challenge, Li Tianqiu stood proudly and snorted, saying nothing. Even as Sunan's spear pointed at him, Li Tianqiu simply thought for a moment before stating indifferently, Your skills and your presence have weakened significantly. But Sunan did not back down. He spurred his horse as if to prove he was still formidable and laughed loudly. Ha ha! Skill is like wine and presence is like a storm. When strong, it is naturally high. When a dog is defeated, it naturally weakens. That is the way of things. With that, he charged toward Li Tianqiu, full of bravado. Come, I'll take you all on. In a flash, he was upon his opponent. Sword King Li Tianqiu instantly took a defensive stance ready for battle. But before the fight could even last 3 seconds, Li Tianqiu's sword sliced Sunan's spear in two. Sunan was stunned, unable to believe he had become so pathetically weak. It felt as if the sky was collapsing before him. The single slash not only broke his spear, but also left a long gash on his body. He froze, a cold sweat breaking out like rain. The pain hit him, and he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. It's over, he thought helplessly. Is it really all over? He turned his horse toward Shenlang. My son Su Jianchang is only 18. Can he not be spared? Shenlang said nothing, merely shaking his head in answer in itself. You want to annihilate my entire clan, Sunan said sadly. To kill them all. So ruthless. Whether he wanted to or not, he had to accept this grim reality. All right then. He rode toward his son, dismounted, and gently placed a hand on the boy's head. His voice choked with emotion. I'm sorry. There is nothing more I can do to watch you grow up. As he finished speaking, he drew a dagger and plunged it straight into his son's stomach. It was a turn no one could have expected, a single fatal blow that sent Su Jianchang to his death. His son's demise was so swift and shocking that his mouth was left agape, his eyes not even having had time to close. With his son dead, Sunan suppressed his grief and stood tall. The dream of hegemony was just a fantasy. I have nothing left.
He walked over to Su Zhan and placed a hand on his chest, his voice filled with emotion. I'm sorry, my brother. You are a talented general, but you never had the chance to truly shine. It's my fault. I wasn't skilled enough to help you. Su Zhan could feel death approaching. He didn't resist simply standing there as tears streamed down his face. He blamed no one and seemed to accept his short fate. And what had to happen happened. Sunan sent his brother to meet his son in the afterlife with a single fatal strike. And so General Su Zhan was dead, but he wasn't finished.
Sunan walked over to Sanyanzi. The moment Sanyanzi saw him, he began to tremble like a leaf in a winter storm. Sunan narrowed his eyes, his voice low and resonant. You were a war refugee from the Gan kingdom raised in my household. You've spent your entire life afraid to show your face outside. It has been hard on you. Hearing this, Sanyanzi was deeply moved. His legs turned to jelly and tears welled up in his eyes, but he held them back, his voice trembling. My lord. Sunan said no more. Without hesitation or a moment's thought, a cold blade pierced through Sanyanzi's heart, sending him to meet his ancestors in the next world. Before he died, Sanyanzi managed one last whispered word. My lord. Then his eyes closed and he returned to dust. Thus another great bandit, Sanyanzi, was gone. Sunan let out a breath and turned to face his first wife. Her eyes were filled with tears and she sobbed, My husband, how did it come to this? Oh, my husband. Sunan gently wiped the tears from her eyes. When a business fails, it naturally goes bankrupt. When a rebellion fails, the entire family must naturally die. Without another word, he drew his dagger and plunged it into his wife's chest. Red blood spurted out like a fountain painting a tragic scene. Death, it seemed, spared no one. Sunan stood there silent as a stone statue watching his wife's body fall without shedding a single tear. It wasn't that he felt no pain, but that he could not afford to be weak. Though he didn't want to. This was the only path. Next, with lightning-fast strikes, Sunan cut down the remaining 100-plus members of the main Su clan. The centuries-old Su family vanished like smoke and ash. After killing every last one of them, Sunan threw the blood-soaked sword to the ground and walked up to Shenlang. Shenlang, you must remember today. Do not let your Jin family fall into the same trap. Shenlang clasped his hands and bowed respectfully. Thank you for the lesson, Lord Su. Sunan narrowed his eyes again. Shenlang is the feud between our two families now resolved. Shenlang tilted his head, pointed a finger at Sunan, and replied coldly, Just a little bit more and it will all be over. I see. I understand, Sunan said with a faint smile. Shenlang, your literary talents are outstanding, your poetry sublime. Seeing the tragic end of the Su family, can you compose a poem on the spot? Shenlang thought for a moment, and then a verse flowed from his lips. The raging river flows fiercely east, its waves washing away countless heroes. Sunan was genuinely surprised. Excellent, truly the pinnacle. A classic line, one that's hard to come by in 100 years. No wonder Ning Yuanjian is so infatuated with you. You are too refined, your talent truly extraordinary. For thousands of years, countless heroes have perished, and countless illustrious families have turned to dust. They say heroes are like stars in the sky, but with so many stars, who would notice if one vanished today and another tomorrow? With that, Sunan looked up at the sky, his eyes blood red, and let out a heaven-shaking roar. I no longer have the face to meet my ancestors. Shenlang, the grudge between our two families is over. You've won. I've lost. Without a moment's hesitation before anyone could stop him, Sunan gathered all his inner energy and with a straight posture struck his own face with a palm strike like a thunderbolt. With a deafening crack, the force not only shattered his skull but also crushed every blood vessel in his body. Blood spewed like a fountain as his body collapsed like a statue struck down by a god. He had ended his own life without waiting for anyone else to do it, an unprecedented death. A heroic curtain called down to the very last drop of blood. The remaining Su family soldiers watched in stunned horror as their lord committed suicide. Their faces turned deathly pale, and their bodies froze like stone. They looked at each other in bewilderment, then turned to Shenlang, their eyes a mixture of confusion and pain. Shenlang's gaze was as sharp as a sword, but his voice was as gentle as a breeze. You may go. The grudges are settled. Blood has been shed. There is nothing left to bind you." He then turned and walked away without looking back, his figure resolute like a victor leaving a bloody battlefield, leaving only ashes and memories behind. But surprisingly, the Sioux family soldiers roared in unison, a sound like thunder in a winter sky. "We swear to follow our clan's lord to the death. We swear to follow our clan's lord to the death." Without waiting for an order, one by one they placed their swords to their necks. Blood sprayed in lines as their bodies fell layer by layer without a single cry of pain, without a single step back. They chose to die with their lord like the last warriors preserving the final honor of the Sioux clan. In less than an hour, they were all dead. Not a single one survived. The Sioux family warriors had all committed suicide. A family, a bloodline, a soul turned to smoke under the evening sky. Meanwhile, in another direction, Su Yong, disguised as Su Nan, led the elite troops in a planned retreat. But they hadn't gone far before they fell into an ambush. They were trapped in a dead-end canyon with steep cliffs on all sides. From above, countless warriors swarmed down like a bursting dam, the cold glint of their blades illuminating the ravine. Su Yong gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot, and roared, "Kill the Sioux family is eternal. Kill them all." Immediately, a volley of thousands of arrows rained down from the cliffs. Whistling arrows descended like the Grim Reaper's scythe cutting down their last hopes. Not only arrows, but also boulders and large logs were hurled down as if the very cliffs were collapsing. The scene was one of absolute chaos, dust, blood, and screams echoing through the deep canyon. It was hell on earth. Su Yong's army fell one by one, their blood staining the ground. Every Sioux family warrior fought to their last breath. Not one retreated, not one trembled. Half an hour later, all that remained was a mountain of corpses. Su Yong, covered in wounds and bleeding profusely, lay gasping for breath in the middle of the battlefield like a fallen war god. He clenched his fist, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, and whispered, "My lord, Su Yong has done his best. Please live on and rebuild our family." Before he could finish, he breathed his last, his eyes wide open, a death too sudden, too painful. The cold wind blew through the canyon. There were no more cheers, no more sounds of fighting, only blood corpses and a tragic, heroic tale etched into history. Back with Shen Lang, he didn't leave the bodies of the several hundred Sioux clan descendants to rot in the wilderness. He had his soldiers dig graves and bury them. Watching this, Li Tiankyu remarked, "I think being a farmer is quite good. Sword Island is quite good too. These great figures are truly glorious, but their deaths are just as tragic." Shen Lang sighed. "Su Nan was a very formidable man. If he could have corrected his flaw of greed, Zhang Chong and I might not have been his match." Hearing this, Li Tiankyu asked curiously, "Young Master Shen, how does revenge taste?" Shen Lang cursed under his breath. "Damn it, I clearly wanted to take revenge myself, but he ended up killing his entire clan with his own hands. Fucking badass." Suddenly Shen Shisan rushed over, panting, and reported, "Master, there's gold here. It was brought from the Chang Kingdom." Shen Lang immediately went to inspect it. Before him was a carriage laden with gold so bright it was blinding. There was so much gold that you couldn't scoop it all up with a shovel. Shen Lang turned to Alu Nana. "Lulu, this gold was stolen by your father, so it is still yours. It should be returned to its rightful owner." Alu Nana glanced at it, her face impassive. To her, this gold was worthless. "You can't eat it or drink it. Do you want it? If you do, just take it all." Shen Lang was delighted. This spendthrift princess is so generous, he thought. But he refused. "I don't need it. Here's what we'll do: transport the gold back to the Chang Kingdom, find a cellar, melt it all down, and pour it all over the ground. That way no one can steal it." A move as cunning as his name. Even the master thieves could only kneel in defeat. Alunana immediately agreed. "All right, just let me know when you need it." Shen Lang clasped his hands respectfully. "Thank you, sister-in-law." Meanwhile, in the mansion of the Marquis of Zhenyuan Zhengtuo and Guoning Yuanxian were like mice that had fallen into a honeypot. At first, they only ate the provisions they brought and drank their own water, but the castle was filled with endless food and countless beautiful women, and they soon lost their self-control. After letting the elderly women and children of Zhenyuan try the food for 2 days, they began to feast and drink to their heart's content. Even the soldiers under their command started to indulge. However, these people were completely unaware that Sunan had released the smallpox virus into the wells several days prior. At the Wu Yue border in the camp of the Yue Kingdom's army, the air was thick with tension. In the Wu Kingdom's territory, the fighting had been so fierce that rivers of blood flowed and heads rolled, but the King of Wu refused to yield. Instead, he had sent an additional 150,000 troops. Ning Yuanxian was worried. I only have 80,000 men. The closest distance between our two armies is only a few hundred meters. If the Wu army launches a full-scale attack, the consequences will be unimaginable. Continuing from the previous chapter, Sunan drew his sword and one by one ended the lives of his clan members. From his wife and son to his brother San Yanzi, and the more than 100 remaining direct descendants of the Su family, he spared no one believing it better to kill the innocent than to let one guilty party escape. Afterwards, he stood proudly before Shen Lang offering some final dramatic words. Then Sunan took his own life in his own unique way. While others might have plunged a sword into their heart, he channeled his internal energy and struck his own face with a single palm strike, dying instantly. The only survivors were the Su family's soldiers. Shen Lang had no desire to kill them and offered them a path to live. However, they chose to follow their lord in death one by one, placing swords to their own necks and ending their lives. Even Su Yong, disguised as Su Nan, met a tragic end. A few days prior, at the Wu Yue border, the situation was extremely tense. In the Wu Kingdom, the fighting was so fierce that heads were rolling and blood was flowing, but the King of Wu refused to compromise. Instead, he increased his forces to 150,000. The King of Yue endured a constant stream of bad news. Report. The Chu Kingdom's army is fiercely attacking the Zhongyao defensive line. They have captured more than 10 fortresses, pushing the border forward by 3 or 4 miles. Report. 30,000 Wu Kingdom troops are frantically assaulting Raging Wave City. Jinzhuo has been assassinated, and the fall of the city is only a matter of time. But the worst news came from the White Knight Prefecture battlefield. A soldier burst in frantically reporting a secret letter from Her Royal Highness the Princess. The King of Yue's hands trembled as he read the letter. Shen Lang has still not appeared. Su Nan has once again reinforced his troops. Zhang Chong is gravely ill. White Knight Prefecture City cannot hold. I fear it will fall very soon. Day and night, Ning Yuanxian had been waiting for news. Zhang Chong, if you lose, I, the King of Yue, will have no choice but to compromise with the King of Wu. I will have to cede 2 prefectures and pay a massive war indemnity. The Yue Kingdom will lose its position as the southern hegemon, and the Wu Kingdom will take its place. Deep in his heart, the King of Yue still held on to a sliver of hope, a distant hope. Shen Lang. Can you still create a miracle? For days, Ning Yuanxian had not shown his face, remaining silently in his tent, waiting. The Yue army made no provocative moves, maintaining a purely defensive posture. In contrast, the Wu Kingdom's army began to taunt them relentlessly, their fighting spirit boiling over. However, the King of Wu was also growing anxious. The plague of diarrhea was causing heavy daily losses for the Wu Kingdom. He impatiently thought the decisive battle at Raging Wave City is almost certainly a victory. What truly matters is the war in the western part of Yue. As soon as Zhang Chong is defeated and White Knight Prefecture falls and the Chu army ravages southern Qing province, Ning Yuanxian will have to obediently sue for peace. The diarrhea-stricken soldiers will have to be withdrawn. This was why both sides had massed their armies at the border, posturing, but not yet fighting, each waiting for the outcomes of Shen Lang's campaign and the battle for Raging Wave City. Countless times a day, the King of Wu would ask, "Has any news arrived from the White Knight Prefecture battlefield?" And each time he received the same familiar answer, "Not yet." In the Yue Kingdom's camp, Ning Yuanxian sat silently on his bed reading Buddhist scriptures. It was perhaps the only way he could find a moment of peace. His eyes were bloodshot, the rims swollen, and spiderweb-thin veins crisscrossed his dark sunken eye sockets, a testament to many sleepless nights and silent, dried tears. The king told himself, "I must endure what must be endured. I must accept humiliation if I must. I must pay indemnities if I must. I must cede land if I must. I am prepared for everything." Just as he was lost in his sorrow, Eunuch Li burst in frantically announcing, "Your Majesty, great news, news as great as the heavens. Young Master Shen Lang has defeated. The Chang King helped Queen Alunana ascend the throne and is leading 10,000 cavalry into the Western Heaven Province battlefield. In coordination with Lord Jiang Chong, they launched a two-pronged attack and won a major victory. The Su family's rebel army has been almost completely wiped out. The King of Yue stood frozen for several seconds, speechless. He was like a stone statue, his eyes so wide they nearly popped out of their sockets, his mouth agape like a gasping fish. He couldn't seem to believe his ears. After a few seconds, he managed to stammer, We won, holy crap, for real." The moment the words left his mouth, the room, which should have erupted in celebration, fell silent. Ning Yuanxian was known for his refinement and eloquent speech, never using such crude language. The court historian, whose job was to meticulously record the monarch's every word and deed, was in an awkward predicament. The king has always prided himself on his elegance. If I record his vulgar words, I'm done for. No, I am a historian. I must have integrity. Even if it costs me my life, I must record the king's every word and action. History is a mirror. It reflects the rise and fall of nations. Meanwhile, the King of Yue, his face flushed with excitement, strode toward the eunuch and snatched the secret report. "Give it to me," he boomed. He read it from top to bottom, unable to contain his joy. "Ha ha ha!" Shen Lang led the Qiang cavalry to attack from the rear. "The Su family's main force is almost completely annihilated. A great victory for our army. A great victory. I'm so happy, so happy." He raised his hand and commanded, "Bring wine, bring wine, bring wine." As if reading his mind, a eunuch rushed in with wine and presented it respectfully. "Your Majesty, I have prepared it for you." The king's eyes crinkled in a grin. "Ha ha ha! You old dog, you can read my mind. Be careful, or I'll have you silenced." Without another word, he grabbed the cup and downed it in one go. "Wonderful. What is this wine? Why is it so delicious? I feel like composing a poem. I am so happy I must take this opportunity to write a poem for the ages." Ning Yuanxian began to ponder, but after several minutes, he couldn't come up with a single line. He gave up saying, "Bah, who needs to write poetry at a time like this?" A short while later, the king was thoroughly drunk, his face beet red, lying on his bed and breathing heavily. "Excellent. Excellent, Shen Lang, that boy is too good. I truly only placed a sliver of hope in him, but I never expected him to actually pull it off. Leading a few hundred men to defeat the Chang king and put Alu Nana on the throne. From now on, the Chang kingdom is an ally of our Yue kingdom. For decades to come, we won't have to worry about the western border. The mission I gave him was really just to hold Sunan back for a month or two, yet he managed to destroy Sunan's main force. It's no wonder I like him so much. Old dog, don't you think Shen Lang is a bit like me?" When asked, Eunuch Li's face went pale. He didn't know what to say, thinking, I dare not answer that casually. The King of Yue continued to drink and talk. "Jiang Chong is also brilliant. Zhang Chong is also wonderful. It's so strange. Shen Long leads a few hundred men to defeat the Chang king, and Alu Taining writes a 1,000-word expose that no one in the world believes, yet Zhang Chong believes it. What's more, he entrusted his life and death to him. Two of the greatest rivals have become the closest of friends. How fascinating. We won, I won." At this point, he could no longer contain his emotions. Tears of happiness streamed down his face. Tears of joy were indeed real. The wine cup fell from his hand, and Ning Yuanxian fell asleep snoring soundly. Eunuch Li gently covered him with a silk blanket, thinking, the last time he lost the border hunt, the king didn't sleep for 4 days and 3 nights. This time, although he appeared to sleep every night, he never truly rested. The king bears the responsibility for the success or failure of the entire nation. Eunuch Li then turned to his subordinate Li Yin and whispered, "You watch him. I'm going to get some sleep too." Eunuch Li, a loyal if cunning servant, had also gone sleepless for days. At the same time, in the main camp of the Wu kingdom, the king of Wu paced anxiously, muttering, "Why hasn't the news arrived? The report on the Western Heaven province battle should have been here by now. The Battle of White Knight Prefecture must be over." Grand Marshal Wu Ji, the king's uncle and the crown prince's grand tutor, was there, and tried to reassure him. "Your Majesty, do not worry. The outcome is already decided." Although Wu Ji was a conservative old minister, he was still the king's uncle, and his loyalty lay with his nephew. Though he often disagreed with the king's thoughts and actions, he would always stand firmly by his side. The king of Wu tried to calm himself. Yes, the outcome is decided. Zhang Chong is doomed. Sunan will sweep through the entire Western Heaven province. This time my Wu kingdom will definitely wash away our previous shame. Suddenly a soldier rushed in frantically. Report! An urgent report! 600 miles! He cried. Your Majesty, a war report from Raging Wave City. The king was surprised. Not a report from Western Heaven province. What's so interesting about a report from Raging Wave City? He took the letter and sneered. Well, good news is still better than none. 3 crow feathers for a battle that was a guaranteed win. Sending such an urgent report is making a mountain out of a molehill. Wu Mu is still not calm enough. But as he opened the report, the king's face went pale. He stood frozen, utterly shocked. We lost. How is this possible? The secret report was incredibly detailed, over 1,000 words long, describing the entire battle of Raging Wave City. Wu Mu had hidden nothing. He took responsibility for his mistakes and also detailed those that weren't his. From landing on the island and besieging the Jin family, to the counter-espionage of Jin Xiying and the betrayal of Chou Hao, every word and line revealed the immense pain his cousin was, in a pain that made him wish for immediate death. After reading it, the king's heart ached, and tears welled in his eyes. He collapsed into his chair and handed the report to his uncle. Royal uncle, take a look. The Battle of Raging Wave City is lost, the king thought. The Thunder Prefecture Island strategy has failed. I paid a great price personally, leading tens of thousands of troops south to the Yue border, all to capture Raging Wave City as a feint. This was the first major strategic move after I ascended the throne. But how the hell did we lose Jin Xiying? Jin Xiying. The king gritted his teeth. If it weren't for you, how could I have lost so miserably this time? My Wu kingdom used a honey trap, yet you used a counter-espionage scheme to make me lose so tragically. 30,000 elite troops and a third of them lost. After reading the report, his uncle's jaw dropped in surprise. Lost again. The hidden Yuan faction spent millions on this, and now it's all down the drain. Our relationship with them will likely deteriorate rapidly. But as an old minister, he couldn't afford to break down at this critical moment. He had to stand firm. He clasped his hands and said, Your Majesty, what is lost in the east can be regained in the west. The war report from Western Heaven province will arrive soon. Once Zhang Chong is defeated, Sunan will sweep through the entire province. Ning Yuanxian will have to compromise. He will take the initiative to negotiate with us. At that time, we can still reclaim at least 3 prefectures. This war will still be a great victory. Yeah, in your dreams, a voice seemed to mock. But the king of Wu, hearing this, immediately regained his composure, his spirits lifting. That's right. The situation is not at its worst yet. It's just a partial failure, a loss of some soldiers. But the Yue kingdom is facing annihilation, facing the fate of being partitioned. My Wu kingdom has not yet lost. The king stood up, his spirit restored. Royal uncle, we will wait together. Together we will wait for the war report from Western Heaven province. We will wait for Ning Yuanxian to sue for peace to request negotiations. I have not lost yet. Just then a soldier rushed in frantically. Urgent report! Urgent report! Your Majesty, the Battle of White Knight Prefecture is over. The Su family's army has been utterly defeated, almost completely wiped out. The king of Wu was struck as if by lightning. His face changed instantly. What did you say? The king of Wu had just recovered from one shock when another piece of bad news struck him like a thunderbolt. His entire body went rigid, his eyes vacant as if his soul had been ripped out. He stood there like a stone statue frozen amidst a storm of fate. What did you just say? The subordinate clasped his hands and reported, Your Majesty, the Su family's main force has been utterly defeated, almost completely wiped out. At this, the king of Wu lost all control. Blood rushed to his head, and red veins bulged in his eyes like a spider's web. His face flushed crimson, his hair stood on end, and he trembled violently, as if he were about to transform into a beast. How is this possible? How could this be? Seeing his reaction, the soldier became even more terrified. He kowtowed and continued. Shenlang unexpectedly led the Chang Kingdom's cavalry to attack from the rear. The Su family's main force was completely unprepared. In less than half a day, they were routed. The defeat was like a landslide. With every word, the king of Wu's chest heaved as if it would explode. Blood rose to his throat, and his face darkened like a stormy night. He kept muttering, "Shen Lang. It's Shen Lang again." Those two words sounded like a roar from hell. The king's legs suddenly went weak, and he staggered back like a collapsing pillar. His trembling hands gripped the arm of his chair, trying to maintain some semblance of dignity, but his eyes were filled with absolute hatred and an indescribable pain. The sky hadn't fallen, the earth hadn't split, but the king's heart was shattered into ashes. "I've lost," he thought repeatedly. "And I've lost miserably. The battle at Raging Wave City was lost. The diarrhea plague has ravaged the Wu kingdom, and we still haven't been able to contain it. Now Ning Yuanxian has won a great victory in Western Heaven Province. Sunan's main force is annihilated. Ning Yuanxian has escaped from hell and ascended to heaven, while I, Wu Qi, have fallen from heaven into hell. Why? What consequences will I face now? What harsh conditions will Ning Yuanxian impose? Will I have to cede another province? Have I, Wu Qi, just ascended the throne only to face such humiliating loss of sovereignty? The more he thought, the more his heart ached. The king's voice trembled. "Royal uncle, am I truly unworthy? Am I unfit to sit on this throne?" As soon as he said this, Wu Ji knelt and declared loudly, "Your Majesty is heroic, resolute, and brave. If you are not fit to be king, then who in this world is worthy of being the great king of the Wu kingdom?" "Then why," the king asked, "did I have to face such a great defeat right after ascending the throne?" Wu Ji pointed to the heavens and answered firmly, "Your Majesty, if you become weak now, the entire new faction will collapse immediately." "I will be blunt. When Ning Yuanxian attacked, your performance was exceptionally brilliant. Your only mistake, I feel, was being baited by Ning Yuanxian and forgetting your own initial strategy. You kept transferring troops from the Western Front, intending to turn a feigned, decisive battle into a real one. This was letting greed cloud your judgment, and it led to the Western Front being left empty, allowing the Chang cavalry to invade the heartland of the Yue kingdom. But since then, your performance has been good. Not only did you not recall those 30,000 troops to besiege the plague-ridden soldiers, but you had them join the main camp to maintain immense pressure on Ning Yuanxian. This was the act of an enlightened monarch. Victory and defeat are often determined by fate, Your Majesty. You must not blame yourself too much, nor should you doubt yourself. As for the backlash from the old conservative officials, please rest assured, Your Majesty. With us old ministers here, whoever dares to be insolent, I will wipe out his entire family. Your Majesty, you must pull yourself together. The upcoming negotiations with Ning Yuanxian will still depend on you. No one can replace you." Hearing his uncle's words, the king was momentarily stunned, a flash of shock in his eyes. But in an instant he gritted his teeth and raised his head, his gaze as sharp as a drawn blade. Though his heart still ached, his spirit had reignited. The king of Wu was still the king of Wu. "You're right," he said firmly. "I cannot fall. I am the king of Wu. I alone will bear all consequences and responsibilities. I still have to negotiate with Ning Yuanxian. My war is not over. On the contrary, it has just begun." Meanwhile, inside the mansion of the Marquis of Genuan, Zheng Tuo had slept with all of Sunan's beautiful concubines, and then with all of Su Jianting's concubines. Now he was lounging between two beautiful, succulent women, one in each arm, his eyes half closed in bliss. This is heaven, he thought. But now it's time for official business. Time to submit a new report to the king. A short while later in his study, Zheng Tuo got to work. Why didn't I send a war report to the king as soon as I captured the Marquis's mansion, he mused. Because I couldn't. The time between that victory and the victory at White Knight City would have been too short. People would suspect that the Marquis's mansion was taken too easily, so I have to pretend we fought for many days and nights. After some time, the report was finished. Zheng Tuo picked it up and read it aloud. After the great battle at White Knight City, your servant led his troops south day and night to attack the mansion of the Marquis of Genuan. After 5 days and nights of fierce fighting with losses of over 10,000 men, we killed 8,000 of Sunan's rebels and finally captured the Su family's fortress, completely quelling Sunan's rebellion. However, that old fox Sunan managed to escape with a few trusted followers, preventing your servant from completing the entire task. I beg your Majesty's forgiveness. Like Zheng Tuo, Liang Yongnian also wrote a report to the king and the crown prince. "We won't just send it to the king and the crown prince," Zheng Tuo said smugly. "We'll send out a dozen teams to spread the news of our victory everywhere. We must let the entire world know that it was the two of us who destroyed Sunan's rebel army, pacified the western part of Yue, and saved the nation in its time of crisis." "Indeed," Liang Yongnian agreed. Zheng Tuo clasped his hands respectfully. "Lord Liang, congratulations on your great achievement. From now on, you are a pillar of our Yue kingdom." "Not at all. Not at all," Liang Yongnian replied. "The credit for destroying Sunan's rebels belongs to Earl Zheng. You are the pillar of our Yue kingdom. However, His Majesty will probably still know that the ones who destroyed Sunan's main force were Shen Lang and Zhang Chong." Zheng Tuo sneered. "What army did Shen Lang use to destroy the Su family's main force? The Chang cavalry. This is leading barbarians into our country. How is this action any different from Sunan's? The disaster of the barbarian invasion 100 years ago is still fresh in our minds." "True, true," Liang Yongnian chimed in. "Furthermore, he relied on the support of the Chang cavalry. A petty 6th-rank official dared to be arrogant with us, not only refusing to obey orders to attack the Marquise's mansion, but also repeatedly obstructing us, allowing Sunan to escape." "Not only that," Zheng Tuo added with a cold laugh, "he also condoned the Chang cavalry's rampage of burning and looting within our territory. Therefore, although he has merit in this battle, his crimes are even greater." Liang Yongnian was shocked. "Is that true?" As if to answer his confusion, Zheng Tuo said, "If he didn't do it, we can do it for him." Liang Yongnian understood immediately. "So that's it. We'll fake the Chang cavalry's rampage, pin the blame on Shen Lang, and claim the merit for ourselves. What a brilliant plan. At the critical moment, one must be ruthless and decisive." 2 days later, a contingent of Chang cavalry appeared in White Knight Prefecture, burning, looting, and killing in city after city. Except for Zhenyuan City and White Knight City itself, all other cities were plundered. Whenever these Chang cavalry raided a city, they would shout, "This is Shen Lang's order. Shen Lang borrowed 10,000 troops from the Chang queen, but has no money to pay them. We helped Shen Lang defeat Sunan's army, but didn't receive a single gold coin, so Shen Lang has agreed to let us loot freely in White Knight Prefecture. Whatever we take is considered our military pay." Immediately, countless people throughout White Knight Prefecture began to curse Shen Lang. "That kid will come to no good end. I used to speak well of him because he only robbed the western region's merchants and never touched the common folk. Now that he's out of money, he's started robbing us. Damn that bastard." Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian's massacre was so brutal that almost every village in White Knight Prefecture was holding funerals. Everywhere people wore mourning clothes and every household was wailing. "Oh heavens, why don't you open your eyes and strike that dog Shen Lang down with lightning? Oh villagers, why is our fate so bitter? Oh heavens." Afterward, people secretly organized to denounce Shen Lang for his heinous crimes. Groups of people went everywhere to file complaints. Some went to the prefectural office of White Knight Prefecture, some to the third prince in Lang Prefecture, and some former officials even led hundreds of scholars to the capital to report Shen Lang's plundering of White Knight Prefecture and the suffering of its innocent people. Currently, Zheng Tuo was stationed at the mansion of the Marquis of Zhenyuan, while Liang Yongnian was in Zhenyuan City. The city's main office had temporarily become the headquarters of the central governor. Every day, countless people knelt before Liang Yongnian wailing, "Governor, please help us. My parents were both killed by the Chang rebels. My wife was also harmed by those beasts. Governor, please help me. My entire family was killed by the Chang rebels and our house was burned down. That scoundrel Shen Lang condoned the barbarians' rampage. Please, Governor, punish him." Thousands of people knelt before Liang Yongnian crying. Having already committed, Liang Yongnian put on a show. Tears streamed down his face as he shouted, "Shen Lang, you scoundrel! You dared to lead barbarians into our Yue kingdom to burn and loot. You killed my people as if you were killing my own parents. This hatred is irreconcilable. You thief! Shen Lang, you are so cruel!" Sunan rebelled. "But what crime did the people of White Knight Prefecture commit? You let the Chiang cavalry slaughter them. You have committed a monstrous crime. A monstrous crime. Fellow countrymen, rest assured. I, Liang Yongnian, even if I have to give up my official post, will definitely seek justice for you. Shen Lang is unforgivable." Immediately the people were moved to tears, shouting,
An incorruptible official! An incorruptible official! Next, Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian mobilized all their power to write memorials impeaching Shen Lang. Memorial after memorial flooded the capital like a tide.
That night, Liang Yongnian returned to the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan to celebrate. At the banquet, Zheng Tuo laughed gleefully. "The barbarian invasion 100 years ago was a horrific disaster. Now that it has happened again, it will surely traumatize the fragile nerves of the Yue people. In this way, that scoundrel Shen Lang's merit will vanish into thin air."
Liang Yongnian, however, was morose. "But Ningjia in White Knight Prefecture probably can't be fooled, nor can the king." "We don't need to fool the king," Zheng Tuo reassured him. "Fooling the world and the entire court is enough. Besides, Shen Lang has a history of leading bandits to rob people. Pinning this on him is perfect.
Shen Lang has just achieved a great merit and is probably getting carried away. This pot of dirty water is enough to make his soul scatter. Ha ha ha!" On Shen Lang's side, under the protection of over 2,000 Chang cavalry, he escorted several carts of heads into the territory of the Yue kingdom. However, not long after entering White Knight Prefecture, his scouts reported enemy activity. "Report A, 5,000-strong army is not far ahead. An army here." Shen Lang was surprised. A moment later, countless people beating gongs and drums approached. It wasn't just a 5,000-strong army. Thousands of civilians followed them, shouting, "Don't run, Shen Lang. We'll beat you, Shen Lang. Pay for my family's lives. We must dismember Shen Lang. Governor, kill these Chang beasts. Kill Shen Lang and get justice for us." Thousands of civilians stared at Shen Lang with eyes full of hatred, as if they wanted to flay him alive. Seeing this warm welcome, Shen Lang was utterly dumbfounded. Liang Yongnian, leading the troops, pointed at Shen Lang and shouted, "Shen Lang, do you know your crime?" "What crime have I committed?" Shen Lang retorted, bewildered. 100 years ago, Liang Yongnian continued, "barbarians invaded, killing and looting, causing 5 prefectures of our Yue kingdom to fall into ruin. The number of people killed exceeded 100,000. The crimes were so heinous it's as if it happened yesterday. Now you have once again led the Chang cavalry into the territory of Yue. When you couldn't pay their wages, you let them plunder the common folk. In recent days, the Chang cavalry have killed and looted in several cities in White Knight Prefecture, causing countless deaths. It's too horrible to look at, Shen Lang. How innocent are these people? What does Sunan's rebellion have to do with them? Your actions are no different from those of a beast. Fellow countrymen, look carefully. Weren't these the Chang cavalry who came to your homes to kill and loot?" The king of Wu was reeling from the consecutive shocks. A plague of diarrhea was ravaging his kingdom. The enemy had won a decisive victory in Western Heaven province, and Sunan's main force was annihilated. But the king of Wu knew he couldn't collapse now. Whatever the outcome, he had to face it like a true hero. The war had only just begun. Meanwhile, Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian were plotting to steal Shen Lang's credit. They submitted memorials to the king and the crown prince, spreading news across the land that they were the ones who had crushed Sunan's rebellion and pacified the western part of the Yue kingdom. Not stopping there, they disguised their men as Chang cavalry, had them plunder and slaughter innocent civilians, and then pinned all the blame on Shen Lang. But they had picked the wrong person to mess with. The hospital was far, but the graveyard was getting closer. Upon his return, Shen Lang received a warm welcome. He expected a hero's reception, but was met with a chilling scene. The large crowd of civilians stared at his troops, their eyes widening with fury. "That's right, I recognize that banner," someone shouted. "No mistake, it's them. Those are the uniforms. That's the banner. They're the ones who killed our families." As an intelligent man, Shen Lang quickly pieced it together. So that's how it is. Liang Yongnian and Zheng Tuo are truly venomous. They dared to do what even Sunan wouldn't. "Very well. You faked the Chang cavalry's rampage, plundered and killed, and then framed me for it. Just how many people did you kill?" At that moment, Liang Yongnian bellowed, "Bring them out!" Several carts were rushed forward and overturned in front of Shen Lang. Countless human heads, men, women, elderly, and children tumbled out. Liang Yongnian continued his theatrical performance, his face a mask of righteous indignation. "Shen Lang, do you have any humanity left? It's one thing to let the Chang cavalry plunder, but did you have to order a massacre? Did you have to chop off thousands of heads?" It was the classic case of the thief crying, "Thief!" Shenlang had watched enough of this play. He thought to himself, I never realized Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian were this ruthless. To frame me, they were willing to kill over 10,000 people. Truly next-level evil. Seeing Shenlang's silence, Liang Yongnian drew his sword, pointed it at him, and shouted to the crowd, "Fellow countrymen, the culprit is right here before us. I am here to back you up. Avenge your loved ones. Avenge them. My soldiers prepare for battle. Protect the people." He then turned back to Shenlang. Shenlang, surrender immediately and hand over the Chang murderers. Empowered by his words and the presence of a 5,000-strong army behind them, the crowd's anger erupted. They began grabbing rocks from the ground and hurling them at Shenlang. "God-forsaken Shenlang, pay for my family's lives. You animal Shenlang, you deserve to die 1,000 deaths. Die, you dog, die." The crowd cursed as they threw stones. Dasha used his massive body to shield Shenlang, taking the brunt of the rocky shower. Liang Yongnian watched inwardly gloating. "Shenlang, even if you jumped into the raging river, you couldn't wash yourself clean of this. Are you going to dare to attack me? That would be treason." He truly had gone mad. Did he really think Shenlang would let this slide? Shenlang thought, "Liang Yongnian, are you an idiot? Do you really think I care about this dirty water you're trying to splash on me? I was going to let the king deal with you, but now that won't be necessary. I will flay you and pull out your tendons. I said I would kill your entire family, and I will kill your entire family." Shenlang's face turned icy. He pointed forward and commanded loudly, "On my command attack, kill the enemy. Anyone who comes within 10 paces of my troops, civilian or not, will be considered a rebel and killed without exception." Instantly, the 2,000 Chiang cavalry charged forward. "You idiot Shenlang thought trying to use civilians to attack me. Do you think they won't run faster than your own soldiers?" The truth was, of Liang Yongnian's army, only 2,000 were stationed in Sunan's rotten province. The rest were new recruits, a ragtag bunch of bailiffs, commoners, and thugs. They were no match for Shenlang's elite forces. In a flash, Liang Yongnian's army suffered nearly 1,000 casualties. He was stunned. "Shenlang, are you insane? I am an official of the court. You're leading Chang cavalry to kill Yue Kingdom's soldiers. If this isn't treason, what is?" Quickly regaining his composure, he shouted to the crowd, "Everyone look! He is your enemy. Charge! Get your revenge!" But by now the civilians were terrified, scattering and fleeing for their lives. Liang Yongnian could only curse under his breath. Useless. A bunch of useless trash. It's over. I have to run. Shenlang is crazy. He's a madman. But could he escape? Not a chance. Shenlang had already anticipated his move and ordered his men, "Capture him." A moment later, a soldier threw Liang Yongnian unceremoniously to the ground. "Master, we've captured Liang Yongnian." Liang Yongnian slowly got up, trembling uncontrollably. Just moments ago he had been so arrogant and boastful. Now he was a cowering wreck. He had messed with the wrong guy. Liang Yongnian had thought that with 5,000 troops and the support of the people he had nothing to fear. He never in a million years imagined Shenlang would be so reckless as to slaughter his army and even the rioting civilians. Now, facing Shenlang, he was scared to death. "Shenlang, you're crazy," he stammered. "Liang Yongnian," Shenlang said calmly, "you brought so many people here. What exactly did you want to do?" Liang Yongnian tried to calm himself. "Stay calm. Damn it! I am a governor personally appointed by His Majesty. What can you do to me?" he then said defiantly. "I was ridding the people of a pest." Shenlang's face was cold. Without a word, he drew his sword and sliced off one of Liang Yongnian's ears. He remained emotionless as Liang Yongnian screamed in agony. "Let White Knight Prefecture rot frame me for slaughtering the people and turn my merit into a crime," Shenlang said. "Then you and Zheng Tuo can steal the credit for destroying the Su family. Is that it?" He then turned to his soldiers. "Bring that man here." "Yes, sir." A bound man was brought forward. A soldier kicked the back of his knees, forcing him to kneel. Shenlang stood before him. "Where are you from?" "Snow Ridge City," the man replied. "I've seen you before." Shenlang continued. "Did you get rich following me? If you got rich and escaped being hunted down, why didn't you live peacefully instead of causing trouble?" The man was speechless. "I see," Shenlang said. "You wanted to cause trouble for me. You wanted revenge." The truth was, among the civilians who had initially thrown stones and insulted Shenlang were the very people who had once followed him to plunder White Knight Prefecture. But Shenlang had thrown them out of the city to be hunted down before they could get any loot, so they held a grudge. They didn't hate the Su family for killing their comrades. They hated Shenlang for tricking them, for using them, and for not opening the city gates for them to plunder. Just then, a subordinate came forward. "These rioters are all armed. Some even have poisoned arrows. I don't think they were just here to cause trouble." Shenlang laughed and clapped his hands. "Excellent. So you really came for revenge. Welcome, welcome. But if you come for revenge, you must be prepared to face the consequences of failure. You came to kill me, so I must return the favor. I can't let you go just because you're disguised as civilians. Can I kill them all?" "Yes, sir." The Chang warriors, their faces like ice, swiftly drew their swords and slaughtered the men without mercy. In a flash, they were all dead, and a river of blood flowed. The surrounding civilians watched in horror, trembling and biting their lips, not daring to move. Shenlang walked toward the restrained civilians. White Knight Prefecture was plundered, and over 10,000 people were killed. Did you see with your own eyes that they were Chang cavalry? No one dared to answer. Shenlang sneered. "Speak." Suddenly one man shouted, "It was the Chang warriors. We saw it clearly. You led the Chang army into our country, defeated the Su family's army, and when you couldn't pay their military fees, you let them plunder and kill." "You come here," Shenlang ordered calmly. The man who had been so bold a moment ago now trembled. "What do you want? I am an old man. Can't others speak of what you've done?" When he refused to move, 2 Chang soldiers lifted him up and pushed him in front of Shenlang. "Have you studied? Do you have a scholarly title?" Shenlang asked. "This humble one is untalented, only a scholar," he replied calmly. But those seemingly simple words inadvertently offended Shenlang, who had no scholarly title himself and whose status was granted by favor. Annoyed, Shenlang said, "Then open your dog eyes and see what a Chang warrior looks like. Just because they carry the Heavenly Wolf banner, does that make them Chang people? Look closely." The man was stunned but obeyed, turning to look at the Chang soldiers. A tall, dark-skinned man stood nearby. "Look closely," Shenlang said. "That is a Chang warrior. They are all dark stout, short and ugly. Their legs are bowed. Think carefully. Were the Chang soldiers who killed and plundered real or fake?" The more the man looked, the more he trembled. This, he stammered. But as Shenlang spoke, the Chang warriors glared at him, clearly offended. Shenlang shot them a look, and they immediately changed their tune. That's right. We are dark, ugly, and short, and our legs are bowed," they said, almost weeping. A soldier pressed a sword to the scholar's neck, threatening him. The man's face went pale, and he stammered, They don't seem to be the same." Under Shenlang's questioning, with a sword at his neck, who would dare say the men looked alike? "Then that's right," Shenlang said with a cold smile. He then pointed to the crowd behind them and declared loudly, "Right now, Western Heaven Province is teeming with remnants of the Su family. They are everywhere. If you're not careful, they could be among you right now. On behalf of the King of Yue, Shenlang am suppressing the Su family and must cleanse this province for His Majesty." He continued, "You people are truly foolish. Some are pretending to be dumb, while others are trying to fish in troubled waters. I will only say this once: the Chang warriors who killed and plundered Western City have nothing to do with me. Someone impersonated Chang warriors to kill and plunder. It has nothing to do with me. Do you hear me clearly?" From the distance, a civilian who still didn't know fear scoffed. "So you're saying you can just kill anyone you claim is a Su family remnant? What proof do you have? What evidence is there that it has nothing to do with you? You clearly did it, and now you're trying to make excuses. It's too late, you dog." Shenlang waved his hand. "Quite the mouth on you. Who said that? Step forward and say it again." His soldiers quickly seized the bold young man and pushed him before Shenlang. "Are you with Liang Yongnian or Zheng Tuo or the Su family?" Shenlang asked coldly. "Still trying to stir up trouble?" "I'm not," the man denied. But before he could give his life story, Shenlang cut him off. "It doesn't matter. Cut him down." As the soldiers dragged him away, the man, even on the verge of death, couldn't help but wonder, wait, why wasn't the scholar from before executed? He started pleading in a panic.
Young Master Shen, Lord Shen, I was wrong.
I know I was wrong. Please spare me. But it was too late. His apologies were worthless now. He was cut in half at the waist. The surrounding civilians watched their faces pale, not daring to utter another word. A slip of the tongue could cost them their lives. After dealing with him, Shenlang announced authoritatively, "Now, if you don't want to die, make way for me. Otherwise, don't blame me if a few more Sioux family remnants get added to the list of people I've trampled to death." Terrified, the crowd quickly parted, creating a path for Shenlang. It was a classic case of might makes right. Seeing this, Shenlang smiled with satisfaction and turned away. "Lord Liang, let's head back." Meanwhile, Liang Yongnian was still clutching his ear in pain, his heart seething. This kid is completely insane, attacking a court official and killing people at will in front of so many witnesses. This is blatant treason. But I should probably cooperate with him for now to avoid... Before he could finish the thought, a rope was thrown around his neck. The other end was in Shenlang's hand. "Shenlang, what are you doing?" Liang Yongnian cried in alarm. "Nothing." Shenlang replied casually. "Just worried you wouldn't be able to keep up, so I'm giving you a little help." "Shenlang, you dare to humiliate me like this. Just you wait." But there was no waiting. Shenlang spurred his horse and Liang Yongnian was dragged behind like a dog. "Lord Shen, slow down, I can't keep up." But Shenlang paid him no mind, urging his horse to go faster. Helpless, Liang Yongnian stumbled and was dragged across the ground. The pain was excruciating. "Spare me. Spare me. I'll confess. It was Zheng Tuo." It was Zheng Tuo's cavalry disguised as Chang soldiers. They were the ones who plundered and killed. We reported that we had killed 8,000 of Sunan's troops, so we needed more heads to back up our claim. "That's why we massacred them and pinned the blame on you." Shenlang turned to the crowd and announced proudly, "Now you hear it. The murderers were Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian, not me." The crowd was shocked, their anger reignited. Murmurs spread. "Damn it! It was really Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian, and they had the nerve to act so righteous in front of us." Shenlang urged his horse on, not caring whether Liang Yongnian lived or died. Half an hour later, he arrived at Genyuan City. Liang Yongnian, dragged to his death, was a gruesome sight. His face was grotesquely disfigured, his clothes torn to shreds, and his eyes bulged with resentment. Even his own ancestors would have been shocked to see him. "Are Liang Yongnian's family members in Genyuan City?" Shenlang asked. "Yes," Wuli replied. 2 sons, a younger brother, and 8 nephews. "Have they committed evil deeds?" Shenlang asked. At this, Wuli's face darkened. "Countless evil deeds. They were all involved in impersonating the Chang cavalry and plundering and killing." "Then kill them all," Shenlang ordered. "Afterward, take their bodies to the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan as a gift for Zheng Tuo." A short while later, Liang Yongnian's family in Genyuan City was wiped out. The bodies of the thousands who had followed Liang Yongnian were piled onto several carts and sent straight to the Marquis's mansion. Inside the city's main office, Shenlang said, "Let the soldiers rest for a while, then we march on the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan." "Young master," Wuli said, his voice trembling slightly, "we're attacking the Marquis's mansion, but we've already wiped out the entire Sioux clan. We've achieved total victory." "I originally didn't want to deal with Zheng Tuo," Shenlang explained. "His daughter is, after all, Jin Hui's wife. The king would have dealt with him, but I didn't mess with him yet. He actively came after me. He forced me to annihilate his army and kill his entire family." "Young master," Wuli said worriedly, "but Zheng Tuo has 20,000 troops, and the Marquis's mansion is incredibly fortified." Contrary to his worry, Shenlang was confident. "Don't worry. I always make sure I have the upper hand before I act. I said I would destroy Zheng Tuo, so I will. If we want to pacify Western Heaven Province, we must clean up these vines." Sometime later, inside the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan, it seemed as though everything was proceeding smoothly. But life is not a fairy tale. Zheng Tuo stood frozen for 5 seconds, his jaw agape in front of several carts piled high with corpses. He recognized them immediately. This is... he stammered. Just then, a soldier ran in. "My Lord Shenlang has arrived at Genyuan City. He killed Governor Liang Yongnian's entire family and brought their bodies here.
Even Liang Yongnian's body is among them. Zheng Tuo's face went pale.
Liang Yongnian's lower body is gone. He was dragged to death by Shen Lang. That dog, Shen Lang, is insane. The governor of Western Heaven Province, and he just killed him like that. Even Zhang Chong or the king's son wouldn't dare to kill someone so arbitrarily. And not only that, he also wiped out several thousand of Liang Yongnian's troops, using Qiang soldiers to kill Yu soldiers. The more he thought, the more he couldn't believe it. Why, what for? He was framed by me. He should be thinking of ways to go back to the capital and clear his name. That's the only way to secure his own great merit. Zheng Tuo's son, Zheng Long, spoke up. Father, isn't this a good thing? The more Shen Long seeks his own death, the more it benefits us. He's right, Zheng Tuo thought. Shen Lang's madness is incurable. I thought my scheming against the Su family, which nearly got Zhang Chong killed, would cause trouble for me. I never expected Shen Lang to solve that problem for me. This time, the credit for destroying the Su family will be mine alone. Father, Zheng Long continued, Shen Lang only has 2,000 men, while we have 20,000. Let's take this opportunity to kill him. Zheng Tuo said nothing, but he was calculating. This is indeed a good opportunity. Our army is 10 times his size. We can definitely take Genuine City. Besides, Shen Lang has committed treason. I have a just cause to kill this beast and avenge my hatred. But Shen Lang brought these bodies here to challenge me to make me attack him first. Does he have another trump card, like the Chang Queen leading her army here? Zheng Tuo then said, whether it's the Crown Prince or the Third Prince, they all want to get rid of Shen Lang quickly. Soon all the high officials in the court will be clamoring for his death. We don't need to do anything. We can just sit back and watch this little beast destroy himself. Yes, Father. Zheng Long replied obediently. Zheng Tuo stood on the high city wall, surveying his surroundings and plotting. I'll just stay in the fortress and not go out. What can Shen Long do to me, Sunan? Thank you for your fortress. From now on, I will be its master. This fortress is mine, Zheng Tuo's. The land beneath it is also mine. The next morning, as Zheng Tuo was sipping tea, he received shocking news. The teacup fell from his hand with a crash. What? What did you say? Shen Lang is leading 2,000 cavalry to attack the mansion of the Marquis of Genuan? It's absolutely true, the soldier replied bluntly. Zheng Tuo was utterly shocked. Am I crazy, or is he? This fortress is defended by 20,000 troops, and it's perched on a high mountain, extremely sturdy and easy to defend, hard to attack. How dare he? That dog is truly reckless. But so be it, Shen Lang. Continuing from the previous chapter, Liang Yongnian was toyed with like a dog by Shen Lang. The price for messing with him was a gruesome death. Not only that, but Shen Lang also wiped out Liang Yongnian's entire family in Genuine City, then loaded their corpses onto carts and sent them straight to the mansion of the Marquis of Genuan, where Zheng Tuo was stationed. Zheng Tuo, however, was not afraid. He saw this as a golden opportunity. Besides, his army was 10 times the size of Shen Lang's, so what was there to fear? True to his word, Shen Lang led his 2,000 cavalry to attack the Marquis's mansion. Meanwhile, in the capital, Shen Lang, who had just achieved a resounding military miracle, became the target of 1,000 tongues. At first, the news of his victory struck like lightning from a clear sky. The Crown Prince received the report that the Su family's main force had been completely annihilated and Shen Lang had achieved an unprecedented merit. However, the Crown Prince held back the news instead, sending a messenger to the northern defensive line to deliver it to the king. Zheng Tuo's report was also held back, but the two of them had already dispatched dozens of teams to frantically publicize their great victory in Western Heaven Province. Inside a tea house in the capital, the crowd was abuzz. Have you heard Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian's army have broken through the mansion of the Marquis of Genuan? The Su family's rebellion has been quelled. Earl Zheng Tuo fought Sunan for several days and nights and beheaded over 10,000 rebels. Sunan's allied forces had 70 to 80,000 men, while Earl Zheng Tuo only had 20,000. How did he win against such odds? Earl Zheng Tuo is truly the god of war of our Yue kingdom. Cheers and thunderous applause echoed, fueled by some unseen hand manipulating public opinion. The capital erupted. People poured into the streets to celebrate the unprecedented victory, as if the nation had achieved a miracle. Taverns offered free drinks for half the day, and the streets were filled with wine, grilled meat, and flags. Students from the Imperial College even gathered before the palace to petition for Earl Zheng Tuo's merits. They knelt and declared earnestly, "Earl Zheng Tuo is the pillar of our Yue kingdom. He saved the day. He is the pillar of the nation. Your Highness, please reward Earl Zheng Tuo for his great service." Praise songs of merit and cheap poems flowed like water. But the ones who had truly achieved the great merit, Shenlang and Zhang Chong, were completely ignored. The key was that the public was blindly following the crowd, which included a group of naive and childish scholars. Furthermore, a group of socialites desperate for attention seized the opportunity. These so-called beauties, mostly no better than prostitutes, racked their brains daily to become famous and would never let go of any chance. The common people, unable to distinguish right from wrong, naturally joined the clamor elevating Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian to the heavens. Thus, Zheng Tuo instantly became a new military god of the Yue kingdom, the greatest hero in suppressing the Su family's rebellion. The crown prince watching the show thought to himself, "It's better for this merit to go to Zheng Tuo than to that bastard Shenlang." Soon after, two more shocking pieces of news arrived. First, that Shenlang had led the Qiang army into their territory, burning and looting White Knight Prefecture, killing over 10,000 people. Heads rolled, and in every 10 households, 9 were wiped out. Countless children lost their mothers, and many parents lost their children. Every household in White Knight Prefecture was in mourning, weeping in despair. The scene was too tragic to behold. Public sentiment turned to outrage. Countless people called for Shenlang's head. "Shenlang is a national traitor, a traitor to Yue. Your Highness, please execute Shenlang." Then came the news that Shenlang had brutally killed Governor Liang Yongnian and massacred the provincial army with Qiang troops. This shocked the entire nation and was beyond the crown prince's authority to handle. He hurriedly sent numerous memorials north for the king to decide. At the northern defensive line, Ning Yuanxian received the reports one by one, growing more shocked with each one. Su Nan had fled. Zheng Tuo and Liang Yongnian had fought for days and nights to capture the Marquis's mansion. Shenlang had led the Qiang army to slaughter civilians. Shenlang had killed Liang Yongnian and massacred thousands of provincial troops. Reading this, King Ning Yuanxian slapped his forehead and sighed in frustration. "I'm about to negotiate with the King of Wu, and all this happens. This is a critical moment. Because the Su family's main force was annihilated, the Chu Kingdom's army was about to cease hostilities. But now, with Western Heaven Province and White Knight Prefecture in chaos, the Chu army is stirring again, launching several small-scale battles with the Western army." Outside the king's room, censors had already arrived at the palace, kowtowing desperately. "Your Majesty, I impeach Shenlang. Your Majesty, I impeach Shenlang for his great treason. Your Majesty, Shenlang has committed 13 major crimes. He led the Qiang army into our territory, burning and looting our people. He even killed the governor of Western Heaven Province and massacred the Yue army without reason. This is tantamount to rebellion. I implore your Majesty to immediately dispatch the Blackwater Terrace to arrest Shenlang and punish him with the highest penalty under the law, death by 1,000 cuts." The more the king heard, the more agitated he became. He roared in fury, "Old dog, go and kill all those people outside for me. Beat them all to death. If you can't, I'll hold you responsible." In both the Wu and Yue kingdoms, no one was punished merely for their words. But if a censor was beaten half to death for daring to speak out congratulations, you were about to become the brightest star in the court, a new idol for the sycophantic scribblers. At the censorate, a group of officials were still chanting their righteous mantras, their mouths tirelessly spouting nonsense. "Your Majesty, if you don't kill Shenlang, you cannot appease the people's anger." Among these young censors, some were perhaps genuinely outraged and heartbroken over the deaths of tens of thousands, but many more just wanted to become famous. One censor was inwardly gloating. That idiot Shenlang openly killed a provincial governor and attacked the court's army. Isn't he digging his own grave? He served his head up on a platter. How can we not take it? But before he could celebrate for long, a group of fierce-looking warriors approached. "Arrest them all! Beat them!" one of them shouted. The censors were utterly bewildered. "Your Majesty, we are pleading for the people. You cannot favor a treacherous minister. Fellow colleagues, we have studied for 10 years for this day of righteousness. We die for our principles, for peace in the world, for justice for the people. They thought it would be a symbolic beating, a few strokes as a form of education, so they took the opportunity to shout their slogans even louder. But the beating was real. The warriors began to mercilessly strike them. "Ow, ow! Why are you hitting so hard? My butt! My lower half, I can't feel anything." But the warriors didn't stop. In that moment they were terrified. "Your Majesty, spare us. Your Majesty, spare us. I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Your Majesty, spare us. We were wrong." But Eunuch Lee remained as cold as ice and ordered, "Continue." Immediately, the warriors swung their rods and smashed them onto the censors' heads like they were ripe watermelons. Blood and brains splattered. They were dead in an instant. A silent purge, not a single cry or whimper. Eunuch Lee quietly waved his hand. "Drag them away." The young censors died like dogs dragged away like trash without a single tear shed for them. Afterward, Eunuch Lee entered the main hall and bowed. "Your Majesty, they have been beaten to death." The king merely grunted, his eyes still on his food, his mouth still chewing. He thought lazily, "I feel much better now. That bastard Shen Lang deserves a beating too." After a moment he said, "Shen Lang is too arrogant. What's that word to describe someone who's an idiot but thinks they're cool?" "The word is Sha-Bi moron," Eunuch Lee replied. "Yes, that's the one." Ning Yuanxian nodded in agreement. "Liang Yongnian was a damned fool who deserved to die 10,000 times. But Shen Lang, couldn't you have endured it for a bit? Why did you have to kill him in broad daylight, and his thousands of useless soldiers too? People framed you, and you didn't even try to defend yourself or argue. You just coldly said, 'I killed him, so what?' That attitude is truly too arrogant." "But in a way," Eunuch Lee said with a smile, "he has solved a problem for your Majesty. Now you don't have to think of a way to deal with Liang Yongnian." "Wrong," the king sneered. "Did you think I needed to think of a way to kill a dog like that? I could do it with my eyes closed. I was originally going to give him some useless title. Now that's off the table. If he dares to be arrogant when he returns, I'll personally whip him a few times. He dares to kill a high-ranking border official without my decree. An unforgivable crime. Go write another decree saying he acted on my secret orders to cover for his violation. But that bastard probably won't appreciate it. He didn't go to Western Heaven to achieve merit. He went for revenge to wipe out the Su family." Eunuch Lee bowed and whispered, "Your Majesty, there are still rumors that in the past, Sunan monopolized relations with the Chang Kingdom and then rebelled. Now Shen Lang is even more powerful with the Chang Kingdom at his command. I fear his ambitions are not small." At this, the king burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha! Good, very good. When others have ambitions, I am wary. But with this bastard, I only wish he were more ambitious. Let him cause a little more trouble. Send a decree telling that bastard to come back immediately. Don't mess with Zheng Tuo. Liang Yongnian was just trash. Zheng Tuo is a hard bone. That guy is occupying the mansion of the Marquis of Zhenyuan and has 20,000 troops under his command. We can't act rashly." "I have to plan this step by step. The urgent matter now is to clean up Western Heaven Province and make the Chu Kingdom lose all hope. Then we open negotiations with the Wu Kingdom, tell Shenlang to come back quickly and not get himself into real trouble." Suddenly, a Blackwater Terrace warrior rushed in as if chased by a ghost and knelt. "Your Majesty, a secret report from Princess Ningjie." The king was startled. A secret report wasn't unusual, but 2 letters at the same time from Princess Ningjie. This was definitely not simple. He took them, his brow furrowed. 2 letters. Has something big happened? As he opened the first one, his expression changed, his eyes wide with shock. The first line made his heart skip a beat. "The day after the Su family's main force was destroyed, Sunan fled with his entire clan toward the western regions. Shen Lang pursued him for 500 miles with 2,000 Chang cavalry but couldn't catch up. Shen Lang then used Sunan's greed, luring him with the gold from the Chang king's palace. Sunan fell for the bait. The entire Su clan was wiped out by Shen Lang. Their heads are being transported back." The king was utterly shocked. The Su family annihilated. What a spectacular move. A fatal blow. I never thought Shen Lang would use a trick to deceive Sunan. I thought Sunan had escaped and was feeling regretful. I never expected the entire Su clan to be truly wiped out by Shen Lang. What was the final confrontation between Shen Lang and Sunan like? That kid Shen Lang is truly formidable. Unbelievably so. After calming down a bit, he hurriedly opened the second letter. Shenlang is leading 2,000 Chang cavalry to attack the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan, directly challenging Zheng Tuo. The king couldn't help but worry. Is this kid insane? The Marquis's mansion is as strong as a fortress. Zheng Tuo has 20,000 elite troops inside. How can Shenlang possibly deal with them? What is he going to fight with? Let alone 2,000 men, even with 20,000, 50,000, or even 80,000. He couldn't take it. Zheng Tuo will really kill him without hesitation. The king immediately ordered eunuch Li, quickly issue a decree appointing Zheng Tuo as the Earl of Genyuan, and tell that bastard Shenlang to get his ass back here right now. Stop playing the hero. Hearing this eunuch, Li's face went pale. This would give Zheng Tuo countless illusions. Zheng Tuo was originally the Earl of Pacifying the West, a new type of nobility without a hereditary fiefdom or a private army. But the Earl of Genyuan was the title once held by Su Nan, which came with a fiefdom, an army, and real power. If he gave this title to Zheng Tuo would think the king intended for him to replace the Su family, meaning he would inherit all of the Su family's legacy, the mansion, the territory, the army. And the most dangerous part was that Zheng Tuo desperately craved that power. Eunuch Li also understood that by offering the title of Earl of Genyuan, the king was implying that he would grant Zheng Tuo the Su family's lands to make him temporarily cease his attack. This was a bait Zheng Tuo couldn't possibly refuse. Quickly, Ning Yuanxian personally drafted 2 decrees. One appointed Zheng Tuo as the general of Genyuan, and the other told Shenlang to get his ass back. Give these to the Blackwater Terrace. Have them deliver them to the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan at top speed. They must arrive within 5 days. If you're late by 1 hour, I want your heads. Eunuch Li received the decrees, his face drained of color, and nodded. Yes, yes. Ning Yuanxian was fuming, muttering, that bastard Shenlang, when he gets back, he'd better stop causing trouble everywhere. Eunuch Li could only sigh inwardly. He's so good at causing trouble. How could he be from a peasant family? A demon in human form, more like. The master values Shenlang so much. With his personality, how could he compromise with Zheng Tuo? He hates Zheng Tuo to the bone. Yet for Shenlang's sake, he's now gritting his teeth and granting land and power, enduring humiliation just to keep him alive. This is completely different from how he treated Zhang Chong back then. At the mansion of the Marquis of Genyuan, Zheng Tuo stood on the high ramparts, clad in bright armor, his cape fluttering in the wind. He looked like a hero defending his land, but his heart was full of vipers. The king is a ruthless man. Someone like Shenlang, who massacres civilians and kills a governor in broad daylight, is a rebel, not a warrior. I, Zheng Tuo, have contributed the most to wiping out the Su family. Killing a rebel like Shenlang is following the will of heaven. The only thing to fear is retaliation from the Chang kingdom. But I'm not afraid. My Marquis's mansion is built on a high, treacherous mountain with only one path. Even if 100,000 Chang troops come, they would just be walking into a bottleneck. Therefore, it's impossible for the Chang army to break through. In fact, to deal with a Chang invasion, the king, even if he has to hold his nose, will have to acknowledge my rule over the entire White Knight prefecture. Then I, Zheng Tuo, will become an important figure. The Chu and Wu kingdoms will have to court me. I can have a larger territory and more troops than Su Nan. My Zheng family will rule this region. Killing Shenlang is all benefit, no harm. Having made up his mind, he raised his hand and gave the order. All troops assemble. Prepare for battle. In the blink of an eye, Shenlang and Zheng Tuo had been fighting for 3 days. But the battle infuriated Zheng Tuo. That bastard Shenlang didn't attack the mansion at all. Instead, he blocked the crossroads in front of it. He was a full 2 miles from the castle walls, using the special terrain to constantly provoke Zheng Tuo's army. Zheng Tuo's numerical superiority couldn't be brought to bear. They could only endure the attacks of the Chang cavalry. Zheng Tuo's 20,000 troops were like a caged tiger unable to deploy in the narrow terrain. Meanwhile, the 2,000 Chang cavalry were like fish in water, moving like the wind, striking like ghosts. Over the past 3 days, Shenlang's side had suffered very few casualties, while Zheng Tuo's casualties had exceeded 3 digits. Helpless Zheng Tuo could only resort to the city's catapults. Shenlang's dense formation is very formidable, isn't it? Let's see how dense you can be when you're hit by a rock. Continuing from the previous chapter, Zheng Tuo was cornered by Shenlang, forced to resort to his last-ditch effort, the giant catapults. Sunan had previously installed dozens of these siege engines on the city walls. To attack Shenlang's dense formation, Zheng Tuo had no choice but to have them dismantled and reassembled outside the city. However, dismantling them was painstakingly slow. Zheng Tuo's son, Zheng Long, watched impatiently and snapped, "This is too slow. How much longer will it take?" A craftsman immediately bowed his head. "We'll need another 5 to 6 days to finish, my lord." Zheng Long's face flushed with anger. 5 or 6 days? Haven't you people eaten?" The craftsman hastily explained, "Young master, these catapults may look simple, but their internal structure is incredibly complex. They must be dismantled with extreme care. If we damage the structure, their power will be greatly diminished." Zheng Long furiously raised his sword, its steel glinting in the sun. He hissed each word like a knife to the heart.
"You have 5 days. It must be done in 5 days. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." The craftsman, trembling like a leaf, nodded vigorously, not daring to breathe too loudly. "Yes, yes, my lord. We won't dare to delay." Time flew by, and the battle dragged into its 8th day. Finally, a royal decree arrived. The messenger was Princess Ningji herself. She handed the scroll to Shenlang, her eyes devoid of emotion. "From His Majesty." Shenlang immediately opened it. Inside were just 3 blunt words, "Get back here." "There is also a decree for Zheng Tuo," she added. A short while later, inside the Marquis's fortress, Zheng Tuo knelt respectfully before the princess. "Last year, for the Empress Dowager's birthday, I wished to pay my respects to my master, but His Majesty ordered me not to leave my post without permission.
I could only remain in White Knight Prefecture, praying from afar for the Empress Dowager's health and the eternal stability of my master's reign." As he spoke, his voice choked. His shoulders trembled and tears streamed down his face like rain. "It has been nearly 3 years since I last saw my master. I truly miss him so." The princess stood silently observing him, a ripple of unease in her heart. "Zheng Tuo, you are a powerful general, one of the top military figures. Why are you wailing like this? You don't look like a fierce general at all. It's truly unsettling." Despite her thoughts, she maintained a calm facade. "The Earl of Pacifying the West is thoughtful. His Majesty asked if your previous serious injuries have healed." Without a word, Zheng Tuo ripped open his clothes, revealing a muscular body crisscrossed with still healing wounds. Deep scars served as a testament to countless bloody battles. The princess was speechless. Damn it all. She saw through his act. This Earl of Pacifying the West is so ruthless he's even willing to harm himself. But to strip in front of a woman like me, it's truly disgusting. Zheng Tuo continued to kowtow and weep loudly. "My master, even now you are still concerned for my health. I would die 1,000 deaths for you. Everything I have was given to me by my master, even my very life. Let alone being injured, even if my flesh were torn and my bones shattered, I could never repay his kindness." The princess shivered. "Good heavens, I never thought there could be someone in this world more detestable than Shenlang. This is so tedious. I need to get this over with." She cut to the chase, her voice stern. "His Majesty has a decree." Zheng Tuo knelt to receive it. "Zheng Tuo has achieved great merit, and is hereby appointed as the Earl of Zhenyuan, temporarily in command of the mansion of the Marquis of Zhenyuan." Hearing this, Zheng Tuo was so shocked, he froze for several seconds, speechless. He couldn't believe his ears. "Oh my God, can this be true? He's made me the Earl of Zhenyuan. No, something's not right." He knew Ning Yuanxian's ruthlessness. If the decree had been a scolding, it would have meant the king still held some affection for him and had no killing intent. But this... The king wants me dead, he thought, and the killing intent is immense. If so, why would he grant me this title? Is it to placate me, to get me to let Shenlang go? On what grounds? I'm the one who has followed him for years, but now I'm worth less than that bastard. The more he thought, the angrier he became. He slammed his fist on the ground in frustration, and then threw his head back and let out a primal scream, a sudden outburst that startled even Princess Ningjie. Then Zheng Tuo resumed his act, weeping profusely and kowtowing like a madman. "My master! My master! How can I ever repay such immense kindness?" While his mouth spoke these words, his mind was a whirlwind. "Ning Yuanxian, you are ruthless and ungrateful. Don't blame your subordinate for overthinking things." Finally, he calmly accepted the decree with both hands. "Thank you for your grace, my master." He read the decree, then read it again, weeping all the while, before finally placing it on a high altar and lighting incense, never once forgetting his performance, which made Ningji feel nauseous. A moment later in the main hall, Zheng Tuo said, "Please have a seat, Your Highness." Ningji thought to herself, "I really don't want to sit on this bastard's chair." But she reluctantly and hesitantly sat down. "I am here to escort Shen Lang back to the capital," Ningji said sternly. "What are your thoughts, Earl of Genuine?" Zheng Tu thought, "The princess wants to force me to release Shen Lang. I want to dismember that bastard. But if I defy Ning Yuanxian's decree, my new title will be nothing but an empty name. I won't even have a scrap to my name. Ning Yuanxian hasn't even given me the mansion or the fiefdom yet." His face changed, and he replied, "Everything I have was given to me by my master. Naturally, whatever my master says goes." "Good," Ningjia said. "Withdraw your troops back to the mansion." "Absolutely not, Your Highness. That scoundrel Shen Lang is extremely cunning. If my army is near him, he will be afraid. If I withdraw, what if he does something disrespectful to you?" For a moment, Ningji wanted nothing more than to draw her sword and kill this old man. "You say you'll do whatever my master says, but you won't even withdraw your troops. Is being the Earl of Genuine not enough for you? What other ambitions do you have? Damn it!" She glanced around, her heart pounding. Zheng Tuo's martial arts skills seem to be on par with mine, and there are experts in ambush outside. It's better not to act rashly. Ningjia stood up. "Very well. I will deliver the decree to Shen Lang. Farewell." Zheng Tuo knelt on the ground. "A respectful farewell to Her Highness the Princess." Ningjia left without a backward glance. As soon as she was gone, Zheng Long emerged. "That woman is finally gone. Father, the catapults will be dismantled soon. Shen Lang is no match for us. If we just let him go like this, we're doing that little bastard a favor." "For now, let him go," Zheng Tuo said. "Has the great purge in the army begun?" "It has, Father," Zheng Long replied. "The key positions have been replaced. The officers loyal to the king have been dealt with." Zheng Tuo smiled smugly. "Good, good. It's time for our Zheng family to become a regional power. My time has come." Elsewhere, Ningjia met with Shen Lang again in his camp. "Zheng Tuo is dismantling the catapults. With just a dozen of those large siege engines, he can drive you out of this narrow terrain. Once you're in open ground, your 2,000 men will be wiped out. Come back to the capital with me now." "No," Shen Lang stated firmly. "I want to kill Zheng Tuo's entire family except for Zheng Hongxian." Ningjia was furious, wishing she could strike him. Why is this bastard so stubborn? I want to slap him, but he's so weak, he'd probably die from one hit. She looked at him. "The Chung Queen isn't sending more troops. You're going to rely on just the 2,000 men you have to destroy Zheng Tuo. To attack the mansion of the Marquis of Genuan with 2,000 men. Are you daydreaming? You're insane." Shen Lang smirked. "Your Highness, in this world, who do you think I trust the most?" "Zhang Chong," Ningjia replied. "There's one more," Shen Lang said with a grin. "Su Nan." "Su Nan, aren't you enemies?" "Su Nan was extremely formidable," Shen Lang continued. "If not for his greed, he would have surely achieved great things, and I would have been no match for him. I believe he wouldn't have just handed over his fortress to Zheng Tuo so easily. He must have plotted something." Ningji put a hand to her forehead. "You're attacking the Marquis's mansion and taking on Zheng Tuo's 20,000 men based on a mere guess." Shen Lang chuckled. "You wouldn't understand. You're a woman who's already past menopause at 30-something. How could you understand the dealings between men like us? He he." At this, Ningjia was livid. She gritted her teeth, hissing, "Shen Lang." Unable to hold back any longer, she slapped him. Shen Lang went flying, already weak and now taking a hit. He coughed up blood and rolled on the ground, groaning, "Ow, that hurts! Oh, villagers, help!" Suddenly, Dasha burst through the door. "Second moron, what's wrong?" He turned to Ningjia. "Ningji, don't hit second moron or I'll get angry." "All right, I was wrong," Ningjia said calmly. "I won't do it again." Shen Lang sat up, still trembling. His mouth twisted. "It seems I've wronged you." He then changed his tune and shouted, "You're not past menopause, because you're a menopausal woman." This was the last straw. Ningji's fury reached its peak. Her eyes turned blood red and veins pulsed as if they would burst, creating a suffocating aura of killing intent. This wasn't just anger. It was a repressed rage pushed to its absolute limit. Zheng Tu, cornered by Shenlong, was forced to use his last resort, the giant catapults. Sunan had previously installed dozens of these siege engines on the city walls. To attack Shenlong's dense formation, Zheng Tuo had no choice but to have them dismantled and reassembled outside the city. However, dismantling them was painstakingly slow. Zheng Tuo's son, Zheng Long, watched impatiently and snapped, "This is too slow. How much longer will it take?" A craftsman immediately bowed his head. "We'll need another 5 to 6 days to finish, my lord." Zheng Long's face flushed with anger. 5 or 6 days? Haven't you people eaten?" The craftsman hastily explained, "Young master, these catapults may look simple, but their internal structure is incredibly complex. They must be dismantled with extreme care. If we damage the structure, their power will be greatly diminished." Zheng Long furiously raised his sword, its steel glinting in the sun. He hissed each word like a knife to the heart. "You have 5 days. It must be done in 5 days. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." The craftsman, trembling like a leaf, nodded vigorously, not daring to breathe too loudly. "Yes, yes, my lord. We won't dare to delay." Time flew by, and the battle dragged into its 8th day. Finally, a royal decree arrived. The messenger was Princess Ningjie herself. She handed the scroll to Shenlang, her eyes devoid of emotion. "From His Majesty." Shenlang immediately opened it. Inside were just 3 blunt words, "Get back here." "There is also a decree for Zheng Tuo," she added. A short while later, inside the Marquise's fortress, Zheng Tuo knelt respectfully before the princess. "Last year, for the Empress Dowager's birthday, I wished to pay my respects to my master, but His Majesty ordered me not to leave my post without permission. I could only remain in White Knight Prefecture praying from afar for the Empress Dowager's health and the eternal stability of my master's reign." As he spoke, his voice choked. His shoulders trembled and tears streamed down his face like rain. "It has been nearly 3 years since I last saw my master. I truly miss him so." The princess stood silently observing him, a ripple of unease in her heart. "Zheng Tuo, you are a powerful general, one of the top military figures. Why are you wailing like this? You don't look like a fierce general at all. It's truly unsettling." Despite her thoughts, she maintained a calm facade. "The Earl of Pacifying the West is thoughtful. His Majesty asked if your previous serious injuries have healed." Without a word, Zheng Tuo ripped open his clothes, revealing a muscular body crisscrossed with still healing wounds. Deep scars served as a testament to countless bloody battles. The princess was speechless. Damn it all. She saw through his act. This Earl of Pacifying the West is so ruthless he's even willing to harm himself. But to strip in front of a woman like me, it's truly disgusting. Zheng Tuo continued to kowtow and weep loudly. "My master, even now you are still concerned for my health. I would die 1,000 deaths for you. Everything I have was given to me by my master, even my very life. Let alone being injured, even if my flesh were torn and my bones shattered, I could never repay his kindness." The princess shivered. Good heavens, I never thought there could be someone in this world more detestable than Shenlang. This is so tedious. I need to get this over with. She cut to the chase, her voice stern. "His Majesty has a decree." Zheng Tuo knelt to receive it. "Zheng Tuo has achieved great merit, and is hereby appointed as the Earl of Zhenyuan temporarily in command of the mansion of the Marquis of Zhenyuan." Hearing this, Zheng Tuo was so shocked he froze for several seconds, speechless. He couldn't believe his ears. "Oh my God, can this be true? He's made me the Earl of Zhenyuan." No, something's not right. He knew Ning Yuanxian's ruthlessness. If the decree had been a scolding, it would have meant the king still held some affection for him and had no killing intent. But this, the king wants me dead, he thought, and the killing intent is immense. If so, why would he grant me this title? Is it to placate me to get me to let Shenlang go? On what grounds I'm the one who has followed him for years, but now I'm worth less than that bastard? The more he thought, the angrier he became. He slammed his fist on the ground in frustration and then threw his head back and let out a primal scream, a sudden outburst that startled even Princess Ningjie. Then Zheng Tuo resumed his act, weeping profusely and kowtowing like a madman. My master, how can I ever repay such immense kindness?" While his mouth spoke these words, his mind was a whirlwind. "Ning Yuanxian, you are ruthless and ungrateful. Don't blame your subordinate for overthinking things. Finally, he calmly accepted the decree with both hands. "Thank you for your grace, my master." He read the decree, then read it again, weeping all the while, before finally placing it on a high altar and lighting incense, never once forgetting his performance, which made Ningjie feel nauseous. A moment later in the main hall, Zheng Tuo said, "Please have a seat, Your Highness." Ningjie thought to herself, "I really don't want to sit on this bastard's chair," but she reluctantly and hesitantly sat down. "I am here to escort Shen Lang back to the capital," Ningjie said sternly. "What are your thoughts, Earl of Genuine?" Zheng Tuo thought, "The princess wants to force me to release Shen Lang. I want to dismember that bastard. But if I defy Ning Yuanxian's decree, my new title will be nothing but an empty name. I won't even have a scrap to my name. Ning Yuanxian hasn't even given me the mansion or the fiefdom yet." His face changed and he replied, "Everything I have was given to me by my master. Naturally, whatever my master says goes." "Good," Ningjie said. "Withdraw your troops back to the mansion." "Absolutely not, Your Highness. That scoundrel Shen Lang is extremely cunning. If my army is near him, he will be afraid. If I withdraw, what if he does something disrespectful to you?" For a moment, Ningjie wanted nothing more than to draw her sword and kill this old man. "You say you'll do whatever my master says, but you won't even withdraw your troops. Is being the Earl of Genuine not enough for you? What other ambitions do you have? Damn it." She glanced around, her heart pounding. Zheng Tuo's martial arts skills seem to be on par with mine, and there are experts in ambush outside. It's better not to act rashly. Ningjie stood up. "Very well, I will deliver the decree to Shen Lang. Farewell." Zheng Tuo knelt on the ground. "A respectful farewell to Her Highness the Princess." Ningjie left without a backward glance. As soon as she was gone, Zheng Long emerged. "That woman is finally gone. Father, the catapults will be dismantled soon. Shen Lang is no match for us. If we just let him go like this, we're doing that little bastard a favor." "For now, let him go," Zheng Tuo said. "Has the great purge in the army begun?" "It has, Father," Zheng Long replied. "The key positions have been replaced. The officers loyal to the king have been dealt with." Zheng Tuo smiled smugly. "Good, good. It's time for our Zheng family to become a regional power. My time has come." Elsewhere, Ningjie met with Shen Lang again in his camp. "Zheng Tuo is dismantling the catapults. With just a dozen of those large siege engines, he can drive you out of this narrow terrain. Once you're in open ground, your 2,000 men will be wiped out. Come back to the capital with me now." "No," Shen Lang stated firmly. "I want to kill Zheng Tuo's entire family except for Zheng Hongxian." Ningjie was furious, wishing she could strike him. Why is this bastard so stubborn? I want to slap him, but he's so weak he'd probably die from one hit. She looked at him. "The Qiang Queen isn't sending more troops. You're going to rely on just the 2,000 men you have to destroy Zheng Tuo to attack the mansion of the Marquis of Genuine with 2,000 men. Are you daydreaming? You're insane." Shen Lang smirked. "Your Highness, in this world, who do you think I trust the most?" "Zhang Chong," Ningjie replied. "There's one more," Shen Lang said with a grin. "Su Nan. Su Nan, aren't you enemies?" "Su Nan was extremely formidable," Shen Lang continued. "If not for his greed, he would have surely achieved great things, and I would have been no match for him. I believe he wouldn't have just handed over his fortress to Zheng Tuo so easily. He must have plotted something." Ningjie put a hand to her forehead. "You're attacking the Marquis's mansion and taking on Zheng Tuo's 20,000 men based on a mere guess." Shen Lang chuckled. "You wouldn't understand. You're a woman who's already past menopause at 30-something. How could you understand the dealings between men like us, he?" At this, Ningjie was livid. She gritted her teeth, hissing, "Shen Lang." Unable to hold back any longer, she slapped him. Shen Lang went flying, already weak and now taking a hit. He coughed up blood and rolled on the ground, groaning. "Ow, that hurts! Oh, villagers, help!" Suddenly, Da Sha burst through the door. "Second moron, what's wrong?" He turned to Ningjie. "Ningjie, don't hit second moron or I'll get angry." "All right, I was wrong," Ningjie said calmly. "I won't do it again." Shen Lang sat up still, trembling, his mouth twisted. "It seems I've wronged you." He then changed his tune and shouted, "You're not past menopause, because you're a menopausal woman." This was the last straw. Ningjie's fury reached its peak. Her eyes turned blood red and veins pulsed as if they would burst, creating a suffocating aura of killing intent. This wasn't just anger. It was a repressed rage pushed to its absolute limit. Note: the original text had a section that was copied and pasted. I have translated the first instance of it as the story continues from there. The catapults were almost ready. 13 giant catapults have been completely dismantled, a craftsman reported. They can be reassembled in 2 days. Good, Zheng Tuo commanded. In 2 days we will have a decisive battle with Shen Lang. We will seize the crossroads, drive his 2,000 rats to the hills behind, and annihilate them. Ha ha ha, Shen Lang, you little bastard, you're dead for sure. Just then a military doctor rushed in. My lord, it's not good. There's a smallpox outbreak in our army. The report was like a thunderbolt. Zheng Tao froze, his face pale, his mind buzzing. How can this be? There's no source of infection. How could there be a smallpox outbreak? He forced himself to stay calm. How many people are infected? Nearly 100, the doctor replied, trembling. Zheng Tuo calculated quickly. Only a few dozen soldiers with smallpox. If I kill them all in time and quarantine those who have had contact with them, maybe I can stop it. He snapped, Kill all the soldiers with smallpox. Burn their bodies. But my lord, the doctor said urgently, there are infected people in every unit. We can't quarantine them all. The incubation period for smallpox is about 10 days. There were a few isolated cases before, but they were all mistaken for measles. It wasn't until yesterday, when the epidemic broke out on a large scale, that the military doctors realized the severity of the problem. Fortunately, the doctors had the sense not to announce it publicly and reported it directly to Zheng Tuo. Zheng Tuo was shocked to his core, his body trembling. How is this possible? It must be Shen Lang, that bastard. No, not Shen Lang. It must be Su Nan. I wondered why he would give up the castle so easily, but I was so careful. How could I still be tricked? It's over. It's all over. According to the doctor, everyone in the camp had likely been exposed to the smallpox virus. Of course, Zheng Tuo and Zheng Long weren't too worried. They had been vaccinated long ago. After a long pause, Zheng Tuo asked grimly, Is it still possible to contain it? The doctor shook his head. Then how many will die? In the Chang Kingdom, it would be over 80–90%. In the old White Knight Prefecture camp, it would be around 70%. But in the Marquis's mansion, we have ample medicine and better resting conditions. Maybe half will survive. Zheng Tuo sighed. Half will die. If I still have 10,000 troops, it's more than enough to defend the mansion. It will be very difficult for Ning Yuanjian to break through, but the urgent matter is to eliminate that bastard Shen Lang. If that kid takes advantage of our soldiers' illness to cause trouble, it will be a disaster. He immediately ordered, This matter must be kept secret. Tell the soldiers it's just chickenpox or measles, nothing serious. Understood, the doctor replied. He then turned to Zheng Long and snapped, The catapults must be ready by tomorrow. If not, I'll kill all these lazy, deceitful craftsmen. Yes, sir, Zheng Long replied, clasping his fist. Zheng Tuo gazed at the horizon, his heart filled with both rage and a thirst for victory. He clenched his fists. We only have 1 day. Tomorrow we will have a decisive battle with Shen Lang. We must completely defeat that little bastard. With a sword at their necks, the craftsmen worked as if they had grown extra limbs. Overnight, 4 of the dozen catapults were assembled. Zheng Tuo personally led 5,000 uninfected soldiers to attack Shen Lang's army. There was only one road outside the city, making it impossible to deploy a large formation. The road was only 7 or 8 meters wide, just enough for 2 catapults side by side. Zheng Tuo was secretly pleased. Shen Lang, you're finished. Your army is too concentrated. 1 hit will cause serious casualties. He raised his hand to give the order, but just then a series of piercing whistles echoed from Shen Lang's camp. Zheng Tuo froze, frowning. Suddenly a scout from the watchtower shouted in panic, The enemy is retreating! They're moving out of range! What? Zheng Tuo was stunned. He immediately ordered, Advance 300 paces, reassemble the catapults. The craftsmen scrambled, shouting at each other to hurry. After 2 grueling hours, 2 more catapults were erected ready to fire. But like a phantom game of chess, Shen Lang's army once again retreated out of range, as if they had calculated everything in advance. Zheng Tuo was livid, but didn't give up. He ordered his army to advance and reassemble the catapults again. This pattern repeated itself. As soon as Zheng Tuo's army finished setting up, Shen Lang would retreat. After 5 or 6 hours, the catapults had fired 4 or 5 times, but the results were almost nil. They had been toyed with by Shen Lang all day, but at least Zheng Tuo had achieved his goal, forcing Shen Lang back into the open ground behind. Now, with his 20,000 troops, he could carry out a large-scale encirclement and annihilation. However, it was now dark. Zheng Tuo ordered his troops to set up camp on the spot. Tomorrow would be the day of the final battle. The camp was quickly set up. In the main tent, Zheng Long reported, "Father, the troops in the city have assembled. Tomorrow morning we will have 15,000 strong soldiers." Zheng Tuo nodded, his eyes glinting fiercely. "If Shen Lang doesn't escape tonight, we'll surround him tomorrow. If he runs, we'll hunt him down immediately. Shen Lang, you're dead for sure." Just then the military doctor rushed in. "My lord, the number of patients has increased again." Zheng Tuo shot up, his face pale. "How many are sick now?" "Yesterday there were over 300. Today it suddenly jumped to over 1,000. Tomorrow there will certainly be more." Zheng Tuo trembled, drenched in a cold sweat, but he quickly calmed himself. "I just need to hold on for one more night. If I can eliminate Shen Lang tomorrow morning, everything will be solved." To stabilize morale, Zheng Tuo ordered the doctors to continue lying to the soldiers, telling them it was just a harmless rash that would heal on its own. But the army was still in turmoil. Seizing the opportunity, Shen Lang acted. Dasha stepped forward, gathered his full internal energy, and roared like thunder. "Soldiers of Zheng Tuo's army, you have been infected with smallpox. You have been infected with smallpox." The sound was so loud it reached Zheng Tuo's camp. The soldiers were instantly in chaos. Some were skeptical, others whispered, "Smallpox. Do we have smallpox? Weren't we told it was just a rash? Is the enemy trying to demoralize us?" The news quickly reached Zheng Tuo, who was leisurely sipping tea. He nearly choked, sputtering water everywhere. He was so shocked his jaw dropped. "How does Shen Lang know?" As if in answer, Dasha's voice boomed again. "Sunan put smallpox poison in the food and water. The number of infected will only increase. Every one of you ate the food and drank the water from the Marquise's mansion, so every one of you will be infected. Do you know about the smallpox outbreak in the Qiang kingdom? Do you know who cured the Qiang people? It was Shen Lang. Brothers of Zheng Tuo's army? Do you want to live? It's simple. Take off your armor, throw down your weapons, and walk toward us. We will give you a divine medicine that can cure your smallpox." Shen Lang, standing next to Dasha, was surprised. He never knew Dasha could be so useful, not missing a single word. Back in Zheng Tuo's camp, the atmosphere was chaotic. Panicked whispers spread. "It seems true after we ate that stuff. Could it really be smallpox? I feel so itchy." Fear washed over them like a tide. Zheng Tuo himself rushed out to refute the rumors. "Brothers don't fall for Shen Lang's tricks. What you have is not smallpox, just a common poisonous rash. If it were smallpox, why am I, Zheng Tuo, not afraid? Why haven't I run?" After hearing Zheng Tuo's words, the soldiers felt a slight sense of relief. They whispered among themselves, "That seems to be right. The general eats and lives with us. He wouldn't lie. We have to trust the general. There's no way we're all going to die." The atmosphere began to calm down, but the ordeal wasn't over. Just then, Dasha's hoarse voice, like a knife scraping across an eardrum, shattered the fragile silence. "You are so naive. Stop deceiving yourselves," he roared. "Zheng Tuo and Zheng Long aren't afraid of smallpox because those two bastards were secretly vaccinated long ago. It wasn't just them. Everyone in the Marquis' mansion, from the servants to the gate dogs, was vaccinated beforehand. They will never have to experience the horror of this disease. But what about you, brothers of Zheng Tuo's army? Do you have the medicine? Has any of you ever been vaccinated? No, those bastard commanders have hidden everything and forbidden you from seeking treatment. Why? Because your lives are nothing but cheap scum beneath their feet. They need you to die off slowly. Wake up." In their eyes, you were never soldiers, just meat shields waiting to rot. Hearing these words, the soldiers' faces turned pale. A heavy, suffocating atmosphere fell over the camp. Every word was like a knife plunging into their chests, like salt being rubbed into their wounds. They began to look at each other with confusion and suspicion. Who should they believe? The general who fought alongside them, or the cruel truth being laid bare before them? Some bit their lips trembling, while others clenched their fists, a mixture of fear and resentment stirring within them. A crack had formed, ready to shatter. Jung Tuo stood there, his face drained of color. His mouth opened as if to offer a defense, but his throat was tight as if blocked by a stone, and not a single word came out. In that tense moment, Shenlang's side seized the opportunity. A group of them began to chant in unison, a roar like thunder in a clear sky. Smallpox, smallpox. The sound was like a war drum, each beat hammering into the minds of the remaining soldiers. With every chant, the hearts of Jung Tuo's men pounded erratically. The fear that had been suppressed was now brought to a fever pitch. Panicked glances darted around. Some unconsciously covered their faces while others backed away, as if trying to escape the invisible plague surrounding them. Whispers spread through the camp. Smallpox? Is it really smallpox? If I really have smallpox, a rash. It must be just a rash. Jung Tuo stood rooted to the spot, facing countless eyes, filled with suspicion and resentment. He could feel his army was like a rope about to snap. Just one more pull and it would completely break. Rage boiled in his chest. His eyes bloodshot and veins pulsed on his forehead. He gritted his teeth and roared, "All of you shut up!" Without further explanation, Jung Tuo waved his sword high and commanded, "All cavalry mount your horses. Charge the enemy, kill them all for me." Zheng Long quickly stepped forward and whispered urgently, "Father, fighting at night is not to our advantage." "I know," Jung Tuo said, "but the soldiers are panicking. If we don't seize this last bit of momentum and launch an attack by tomorrow when the smallpox epidemic worsens, we won't have the strength to fight anymore." He raised his sword high again, his eyes red with killing intent, and roared as if to tear the night apart. "All troops, attack!" The command thundered through the camp. Thousands of hooves prepared to trample the battlefield. But Jung Tuo never expected that the moment he gave the order, Shenlong's forces would leap onto their horses and flee. A cloud of dust billowed from their hooves, and taunting cries echoed from the distance. "Smallpox! Smallpox!" At first glance, it looked like Shenlong's men were in a panicked retreat. But Jung Tuo failed to realize that from the very beginning this was all part of Shenlong's plan. He had deliberately stoked the fear of smallpox, sowed suspicion, and then fled to force Jung Tuo to order a nighttime pursuit. A battle at night on unfavorable terrain with an unstable army, it was the deadly trap Shenlang had silently laid. Jung Tuo, however, was livid. He roared, "After them! Catch those damn dogs for me!" In the ink-black darkness, only the thunder of hooves could be heard. Although Shenlang's forces were galloping at full speed, he keenly noticed that the enemy's hoofbeats, which seemed close at first, were gradually falling behind. A faint smile touched his lips. The Chang war horses weren't as large or as strong as Jung Tuo's cavalry, and they weren't suited for a full-on charge, but they excelled in endurance. If he could just keep this up, he would eventually exhaust their army. Shenlang's eyes glinted with the cunning of an old fox leading a pack of wolves into a trap. He waved his hand and commanded with a mocking tone, "Keep shouting. Shout louder. Make them run with trembling legs." Immediately the troops behind him roared in unison, "Smallpox, smallpox, smallpox." The chant echoed through the silent mountains. Behind them, Jung Tuo's cavalry grew more unnerved with every shout. The thundering hooves suddenly sounded like a countdown to panic. Each word was a fatal blow to Jung Tuo's chest. At first he gritted his teeth, his eyes red and ready to explode. "Very good, Shenlang, very good." But as they ran, sweat began to pour down his forehead. "This dog is ruthless." He desperately tried to reassure his soldiers. "Damn it, you don't have smallpox. Don't believe them, keep chasing." Just as Shenlang had predicted, Jung Tuo's horses had strong initial power but poor stamina. The two armies chased each other relentlessly throughout the night, covering over 100 miles. While Shenlang's men were still full of energy, laughing and taunting, Jung Tuo's cavalry grew more and more anxious. The chant of smallpox was like a death knell ringing in their ears all night long. Suddenly, just before dawn, Shenlang's army fell silent. The abrupt quiet was more unsettling than the taunts. A cold sweat ran down the backs of Jung Tuo's men. Zheng Long rode up and reported, "Father Shenlang's army has gotten far away."
Jung Tuo felt a pang of regret. We can't pursue them any further. It's almost dawn. Once the sun rises and people see the pustules on their faces, the fear of smallpox will completely take over. He turned his horse and commanded, "Everyone return to the fortress immediately." The cavalry behind him quickly reformed and turned back, the sound of their hooves heavy and defeated. But in Jung Tuo's heart, rage was boiling.
"Shenlong, you bastard, enjoy it while you can. One day I will tear you to pieces and grind your bones to dust." Finally, the sun rose. As the first rays of light shone down, the soldiers looked at each other, and their faces turned pale with horror. "Damn it, your face is covered in red spots. Get away from me," one screamed. "Look at your own face. You're covered in them too. Even worse than me," another shouted back. Screams and curses erupted everywhere. Someone yelled, "Oh my God, it's really smallpox. It's really fucking smallpox." "Calm down," Jung Tuo shouted, trying to restore order. "The entire army will retreat to the fortress for treatment." But just then the sound of galloping horses thundered from behind, approaching at an incredible speed. It was Shenlang's army. It was all part of his plan. The chant of "smallpox, smallpox" returned, this time fiercer and more mocking than before. Jung Long trembled, his face ashen. "Father, what do we do now? Do we fight?" But Jung Tuo was no better off than his son. He stood there, his eyes vacant, his throat tight, his mind a complete blank. He was a veteran of countless battles, but he had never faced an invisible enemy like this. With no clash of swords, no bloodshed, just a few shouts of "smallpox," Shenlang had shattered his army of tens of thousands. "My war horses are exhausted, and morale is at an all-time low," Jung Tuo thought. "But I can't turn my back on the enemy, or the losses will be even greater." He gritted his teeth and roared, trying to muster his last bit of fighting spirit. "Turn around and face them, brothers, charge!" The cavalry hastily turned their horses to form a battle line ready for a desperate fight. But in that instant the battlefield fell eerily silent. No more hoofbeats, no more taunts. The silence was unnerving. "Why did it suddenly go quiet?" Jung Tuo stammered, his pupils constricting. "Father," Zheng Long said, "the enemy has stopped." Jung Tuo stood frozen for a few seconds, his mouth agape, a bitter taste rising in his throat. Damn it! This is so frustrating. With a single move toying with him like a cat with a mouse, Shenlang had him cornered. He couldn't fight, and he couldn't retreat. After a few seconds of observation, Jung Tuo realized in horror, they're going to fire arrows, return fire. The final battle had officially begun. Shenlang's archers were arranged in a dense formation, unleashing a continuous storm of arrows on Jung Tuo's cavalry. Though Jung Tuo's men fired back, their horseback archery skills were no match for the elite Qiang cavalry. Their bows were also inferior in both power and range, causing minimal damage. Shenlang, on the other hand, was different. With every arrow he released, another of Jung Tuo's men fell. The casualties mounted. After the first exchange of arrows, Jung Tuo had already suffered significant losses. He wanted to charge and kill Shenlang, but Shenlang's cavalry would retreat. When Jung Tuo wanted to retreat, Shenlang would harass them with arrows. This cat-and-mouse game repeated 3 or 4 times. After a while, Jung Tuo's war horses were completely exhausted. He abandoned any thought of counterattacking. To make matters worse, the smallpox epidemic began to spread rapidly, with red spots appearing on the soldiers' faces. Fear, exhaustion, and broken spirits, Jung Tuo was at his wits' end. He felt like he was about to fall off his horse, drenched in sweat, his throat dry, his face pale. His head felt like it was about to explode with rage. Damn that bastard Shenlang, who comes up with such a despicable battle tactic. "The entire army retreat to the fortress," he commanded, his voice filled with despair. "Everyone retreat at full speed. Don't worry about what's behind you." From Shenlang's side, everything was under control. He stood calmly on his horse, observing the entire scene through a spyglass. He watched the chaos, exhaustion, and collapse of Jung Tuo's army as if it were a comedy. The blue sky and bright sun shone down on the pale, terrified faces, the sweat on their brows like tears of despair. Seeing that the time was ripe, Shenlang's lips curled into a wicked cold smile. He waved his hand and shouted, "Charge!" Instantly, the Qiang cavalry, like a pack of hungry wolves, charged forward, unleashing a fierce counterattack. Tens of thousands of arrows formed a black rain, pouring down on Jung Tuo's chaotic formation.
In a flash, Zheng Tuo's soldiers fell like wheat in a storm. Blood splattered and screams echoed across the battlefield. At that moment, Da Sha also joined the fray. He was carrying a huge log as big as a pillar, yet he moved with surprising agility. In an instant, he crashed into Zheng Tuo's formation. The soldiers looked up and were petrified. Before they could react, Da Sha let out a thunderous roar and swung the massive log in a wide arc. With a deafening crash, dozens of soldiers were sent flying, their bodies torn apart, their bones shattered. They were all killed in a single blow. Thus, the 4,000 mighty cavalry who had once been a formidable force were completely shattered by the pursuit of just 2,000 Qiang cavalry under Shenlang's command. When Zheng Tuo finally made it back to his camp, he found that he had less than 2,000 cavalry left. To make matters worse, the smallpox epidemic had broken out on a massive scale. The camp was no longer a camp. It was a living hell. Soldiers lay everywhere, some delirious, some writhing in agony. The sounds of weeping and gasping filled the air like a death choir. So many people with smallpox, he thought in despair. Damn it, what's the point of fighting anymore? He looked at his remaining soldiers and said, "Everyone back to the castle."
A short while later, Zheng Tuo was back in the castle. He stood on the high ramparts, his eyes vacant, his chest heaving. In just one night and a day, not only had he failed to kill Shenlang, but he had also lost several thousand men. Suddenly his face turned deathly pale. Below he could see the faint figures of Shenlang's army approaching. The suppressed rage made him tremble. That damn son-in-law is blocking the crossroads again. That god-forsaken son-in-law. One day I'll piss on your ancestors' graves. If I catch you, I'll chop you up and eat you.